It's GSL Group B, just right after Group A. In the bottom right, we do have the red Protoss Zoun. And in the top left, it is herO. Updated the overlay. I don't know how it got de-updated. Maybe I only had it on Europe, which actually would make sense. But now I also have it on North America, which obviously these were played in Korea, but don't have to log into Korea for casting replays, do I? Anyway, we're on Pylon, and we're talking about a PvP, so there will be a lot of pylons. Yeah. There are already a lot of pylons. That's what they named a map for. Isn't it pretty? It's pretty enough. So Zoun versus herO, and then what is the next match after this? I should have looked. Bunny and Classic. Wow, that's a lot of Protoss. That is all the Protoss just fit into one group. Because yesterday we had nothing but Terran versus Zerg. But anyways, we're talking about herO versus Zoun. People are going to be giving herO the edge. Is herO probably one of the favorites to make it out here? I think I predicted herO and Classic. As much I wanted to you know, give a nod to the Terran here. I'm not really feeling it for Bunny, but we'll see. We'll see. But it is PvP, and I don't think that herO is infallible when it comes to PvP. And I think that Zoun is actually quite good. So this is going to be kind of a tricky match, a tricky group, actually, because it is so many PvPs. Plus, it's a best of 3 versus a Terran, and maybe Bunny can bring out some all-ins or some cheeses, something to shock and awe some of these Protosses. I mean, it could get ugly really fast. For Bunny's sake, I think he kind of has to do that ASAP. He can't go on revealing all of his Protoss builds if he has to face, you know, all 3 Protoss in like 9 games. That would kind of suck. But if he gets it going real fast, then maybe he can blitz his way through. As I said, shock and all, kind of. And then for the Protosses, I mean, they're kind of also in a similar boat, I suppose, as far as just they're facing so many Protosses. They're only going to be able to show so many builds, but when you think about how many builds exist in PvP, I don't know. Seems limitless. So many ways to trick your opponent that even if you consistently show a proxy Stargate, for instance, which is exactly what Zoun is doing, there are ways to play on that. I mean, there is pretty much no other way to play a proxy Stargate other than the oracles nowadays. They don't really have the proxy Void Ray anymore. But we have seen some trickery as far as kind of setting this up as a best of 3. Hey, I proxy Stargated. Maybe I did well, maybe I didn't. But then now I'm going to show you proxy pylon somewhere, and you're not going to know if it is a Stargate or not. Because you might also include it with the Adepts, which do commonly combine with the Oracle. Now, this is all known by herO, who chose to go for a very simple and safe opener. Stalker, Sentry, pretty much the safest thing that you can do. And then immediately into a Robo. And that would be because the lack of second pylon was noticed. And oh no. Oh, well, that's not supposed to happen. Yeah, it is worth repowering that. But yeah, that's Alright then, that's not a great start for Zoun, who also got supply blocked off of that. So if you wanted to produce probes to prepare for the transfer over into the Nexus, that isn't happening currently. I think a second unit also has gotten delayed. Yes, indeed. And those units came back to stop the pylon. This is a disaster for Zoun is what it is. And it really comes down to the Adepts not having that much of a threat if you are on top of your pylon block. So the Adepts, I mean, if they would have gone after the Sentry first and foremost, they could have killed that, but then they would have kind of struggled to kill the Stalker as well. Then we still could have had maybe some kerfuffle around the pylon, but, you know, hindsight 2020, that might have been the better thing. It's just not expected. You don't expect to have to do that. You're also very much hoping that, of course, the Stargate's just not found out. But the way that Zoun positioned it was very much in the hallucination path, and that is what's really bit Zoun in the butt, to the point that, am I looking at a game over right now? I think for all intents and purposes I am. But, well, you know, there's a chance. Zoun did finally repower the Stargate. The first Oracle already appeared. Actually got a baller stasis trap. That was quite good. Obviously late on the pull probes, but that is, in fact, a game over. Yep. Too much pressure at the front. And that is a shocking first game. herO was all over that. I really wonder why Zoun put his Stargate where he did. If the sentry is made, obviously, off of a gateway, not a warp gate, it will often stay in the main for a little while as it gets recharged, and then it can send the hallucination out immediately. So this would be... I guess it's not like it's always going to go over that Stargate position, because the hallucination could go from point A to, let's say, point B, and then it would only go through these bridges. You know, and that's the... and that's fine then. And then herO would not have been so bold as to move out with his units if he did not know exactly where the proxy Stargate was. That was just very unfortunate. I don't know if this was a case of Zoun studying herO's hallucinations, or perhaps thinking that herO wasn't going to bother with hallucination, of course. Maybe he was going to go double stalker opener. Or if it was herO studying Zoun's Stargate locations. By the way, that scout literally ended the game, because herO knew exactly what to do to finish it off. So, okay. Quick and easy. Game 1 goes to herO. Now watching GSL pays off for once. Yes. I haven't watched GSL, actually, since they started giving out the replays. So I can have the authentic casting. Very quick game 1. Game 2 is going to be on Persephone. In the top left it is herO, bottom left it is Zoun. Just very quick and easy game there. herO, Sentry Stalker opener, hallucination finds the proxy Stargate, thus leading to the attack on the pylon. No ability for Zoun to, I think, anticipate that, because if he did send his adepts to the pylon to protect it, yeah, they probably would have. The Oracle definitely would have gotten out, because at the very least they would have bought some time. But no one really does that with the first 2 adepts. And, you know, adepts are a pretty common combo with the proxy Stargate. You do want to send it across the map, get some of your... Oh my god, we had a cannon rush on the way. Get some of your own scouting, typically with the adepts as well as a partial distraction. So the Oracle comes in with the adepts, and you got 2 places to worry about. So that's why you don't send it over to protect it. But that really bit him in the butt. And let's see if this cannon rush will redeem Zoun. Already kind of tricky, honestly. Already this is going pretty well. The fact that the 2 pylons are able to wall off is good. That's a good start. Second probe is here. Actually going to let these pylons finish. Okay, let the first one finish. Second one, it could force power high ground cannons protected by the low ground cannon, which only 1 probe can attack into. So that's pretty proper. Now, the second probe does not go down, plants down a cannon, does have to cancel it. That makes sense, but the 1 cannon on the low ground, I should say, is going to finish, allowing this probe is still alive. It is still alive to try again. The Zealot, oh, well, it's not, oh no, no. herO messed up. herO lost the game. herO lost the game. herO forgot a second pylon. I am pretty sure he just literally forgot it. He lost a couple of probes, really, which is why he's able to build a Zealot. But that was a supply block. Pretty deadly. The number 1 killer in a lot of games when it comes to cheese is not necessarily not knowing how to react to it if you know it's on the way. It's kind of the pressure applied and the mechanics that are put by the wayside while you panic. So that happened here, actually. That happened to a professional gamer, guys. Doesn't happen often, but it did. So no second pylon. Led to a supply block. Maybe if he had prioritized the Carbon X core, then pylon, that would have made some sense. But then the gateway might have fallen before a second unit got out anyway, just because there was such a significant gap one way or another in the unit production. So this is this game, and it's not very cool to be losing to a cannon rush on broadcast, but it happens to the best of us apparently, because herO is the best of us. He's gonna try and break out of this by getting a Robo, an Immortal, and a Warp Prism. And then his counterattack would be quite strong. Problem is that I'm not really sure he can afford to do that. He does not have enough to get both of those units currently, and the probes have stopped mining, and the Nexus is also going to die. He also doesn't have enough minerals to build another Nexus, if that was his plan. So that's Those 2 shield batteries were quite unnecessary. That was just panic. That was, that was already knowing you screwed up and you were dead anyway, and then just trying to figure things out as you went along. But yeah, and then he was supply blocked as well, so there was really nothing coming out of that Rovo. GG's, Zoun wins. Speed Racer PvP. Speeding along here into game 3 on Tokamak. In the top right, it is Zoun. In the bottom left, it is herO. This group was played literally like 16 hours ago, so it's pretty fresh. This is the continuation of GSL, which technically GSL did start before Dallas with the round of 12, but then they had a long gap because there was Dallas, then there was the Bulgaria tournament. So they had to compensate for that to a certain degree. And then, obviously, they could play GSL. But even then, GSL might stop people from, for instance, participating in Home Story Cup, which not a lot of Koreans did anyway. And there's really not as much of a reward for that, too. Because if you play in Home Story Cup, you're going to be even more jet-lagged and more, sleep-deprived and all that good stuff. If you play for the global qualifiers, which actually get you to EWC, and Home Story Cup does not get you to EWC. But anyway, a lot of tournaments fit into a very small period of time. So Zoun is obviously very cheesy. He's gone Proxy Stargate, which on the cheeso-meter is maybe like a 5 out of 10. Like, it is cheesy, but it isn't really... It's like fair game. Like, no one can really blame you for Proxy Stargating in a PvP. But a Cannon Rush... The audacity. So I would be very scared of herO, if I was herO, of another type of pressure. Now herO could say, especially as he does get the scout here and says, okay, it's not a cannon rush at the very least, he could say, I'm going to go mano a mano on this whole proxy thing. I'm going to also scare you. Maybe I don't use my pylon, but maybe I do. And then maybe I all in you don't know. And then if they both do the same thing and they both all in each other, well, that happens all the time in PvP. Sometimes it's a build order loss. Sometimes it's a micro war. But as we can see, herO, very content playing a normal game. This time around, Zoun, ditto. Both of them with their second pylon back at home. And both of them, obviously, you're going to see that as the probes do not have to leave quite yet. There they go. Stalker Sentry for both players, too. So Zoun hits him with almost a 1-2. I guess it would have been if the Proxy Oracle had worked out, as opposed to being a total failure. And now is calming things down. Let's just chill. Let's just chill. Gonna block the Nexus, which is presumably on the way. And now just because there isn't a proxy doesn't mean that there's not something on the way. This could be double Stalker popping out, and then this could be a Robo over here that Zoun can't get back in to see, but he has seen that it is a sentry. And I don't know if herO saw the same thing. Did he lose his probe? He did lose his probe. Not only that, somehow, I mean, Zoun got ahead by 3 probes, not just 1. So he might have chrono. It wasn't a chrono. He just consistently built probes, whereas herO had a gap at some point. Okay, it is evening up already, as I'm speaking, as herO put a chrono into the probes right there. Tiny, tiny things to track, but up until this point, they were being very, very similar. Hallucinations being sent across the map for both players means that herO's Robo is being scouted, and Zoun's Twilight Council is being scouted. So, big difference in the technology here. One can go into a Warp Prism, do a little harass. The other obviously goes into Blink. Well, most of the time goes into Blink. Could be a Dark Shrine, I suppose. And then that Blink would eventually take care of the Warp Prism pressure. That's kind of one of the reasons that Blink started to become popular. Stargate immediately after Robo. Hidden as well. Huh. Interesting. So let's talk about the Warp Prism and the harassment that can come along with it. Obviously, this could also just be very safe. Getting a couple of Immortals, perhaps even playing into Charge, Immortal Archon, which we saw a little bit in some of the qualifying matches of PvP. It does make a comeback, I suppose, after being the bread and butter pre-2019 or something like that. And obviously then Blink is the most popular one. But the Warp Prism is on the way out. This is what Zoun really has to pay attention to. One, for the harassment opportunities if there is a Warp Prism, and two, obviously, if there's going to be a push. He doesn't need to prepare for that. Because even though Blink... it's kind of proven to ultimately be the best thing you could do. If you use Blink optimally, it is better than whatever else Protoss can do. There's a lot of ifs in there, because what if you don't play optimally? What if you mess up? What if you stay so defensive, missed opportunities to halt this push incoming, suddenly have Stalkers up against their own Nexus with 2 Immortals firing away, your force fields don't go down to help out with one of those really early game pushes, or alternatively, what if, this is so funny, what the hell is happening here? Alternatively, what if your opponent wasn't really actually going to do anything like major on the forward place, but rather they were going to go for a surprise Oracle? What if that happens? Well, the Stalkers are completely out of position. Zoun sees the pylon, but doesn't actually see it. Totally misses the opportunity to have that slight heads up, but Blink is done. Oracle only gets 3 probes. Thankfully, Zoun had only just begun to move out and was able to respond. Funnily enough, if herO had waited 5 seconds longer, unbeknownst to him, that would have worked out. Now, second Oracle is found out by Zoun's attacking army. Fortunately, it does survive, but it's in a very awkward place right now. herO needs to worry about the defenses of his own, because he didn't actually go for a lot of army. He's not the one that's pushing. Zoun is the one feeling very capable moving out on the map, going with his Blink Stalkers, that if they did find something they couldn't tackle, they could leave anyway. But he has dedicated more to the gateways. He has delayed his 3rd Nexus. This is a very specific attack, dedicated to a certain extent as well. herO's own 3rd is going in a corner base, so I mean, it's dedicated from Zoun, because if he was trying to face the 3rd base, then, you know, obviously he needs to kill that, which I think he absolutely would, and then maybe find more damage, because he has fallen behind in probes as well. But you know, if his opponent's also on 2 bases, then this is something that he could use to go ahead and take a 3rd base of his own and get ahead in that macro sense, too. A couple of Adepts showed up with the Warp Prism that herO did bother getting. It just hasn't been used until this point. And the Oracle also in the main base, making sure perhaps that the... I was blind. The Adepts also shaded into the main base. This is actually a lot of pressure, but then Zoun decides to go for the throat. Looks like he already took out one of the Immortals, so 2 of the Immortals. 3rd Immortal, however, coming in at the nick of time. The force fields are definitely awkward for herO, but Zoun has already missed out on so many of the Stalkers. The retention did not happen because he dove. So the Stalker numbers might not be high enough. Of course, he still has this proxy double gateway, in fact, and that is going to be able to maybe push this enough to win the game. And we are talking about a winning the game scenario, I believe. So many probes are going down on both sides, although I think herO's harassment is now done with, as he's been forced to reinforce his home base. Does not have any more Adepts. Now goes back onto the Adept production, now thinking that Zoun might give him a break. And it looks like Zoun is forced to. 2nd Immortal popped out, 3rd Immortal is on the way. Resident Glaives finishes as well. So herO, he has an idea of the composition. He can't quite get there yet because he is a little limited on the income, but ditto on Zoun's part as the Adepts come through. Warp Prism in the main base looking to save it as well. Every probe mattering at this point after the slaughter that happened on both sides. It's going to be very difficult to tell who actually is ahead at this point. So Zoun can say, okay, this guy still has a good number of Immortals. That is actually very scary. My Stalker production has been incredibly limited because of the economic losses. But hey, maybe he also has lost so many probes, he can't protect the Immortals. Maybe I can start picking these off if I have good micro. And that's what he's going to try and do here, using the flexibility of those Blink Stalkers to go after them. 1 Immortal targeted down, does last a little while though. And the 2nd Immortal also going to last a couple of shots there. But the last Immortal is looking a little bit lonely here. The Stalkers are gone. The Adept, I think 1 Adept was made, is gone. And Zoun's Stalker aggression has absolutely worked out here. herO should not have moved out, but once again, he has got Adepts in the main and the natural killing all these probes, but herO, can he hold back at home? The shield battery is not going to be enough. The probes are being pulled into so many Stalkers. herO has 1 more Immortal on the way. Adepts are being built back at home as well. He's also got this proxy, but I don't know if it's really mining a whole lot. And, or a hidden base, not a proxy, obviously. This is crazy, and I think herO might just be losing out a bit too much. herO has lost now way too many probes. without dealing quite enough damage. I mean, the count's starting to rack up a little bit. 6, 7, 8 probes going to go down. Maybe 9. Oh, he stops focus firing because he has to micro back at home. More adepts formed in. Shield battery still intact. A stalker number, good, not great. Some of them are injured as well. There they go, blinking on top of that one Immortal. The second Immortal does pop out to help, though, and that is going to be crucial. The Adepts also considering to provide some type of buffer if Zoun can't dive on the Immortal, but the Immortal shield was popped. Is Zoun going to go for it? I'm not sure that is the plan. That is a very dangerous plan, as the Stalker number is just so limited. Finally recollecting his Stalkers, the ones that were defending back at home, now going back to the front lines. This was what happened last time. There was a major battle. herO moved out, thinking he had enough units. Suddenly, Zoun brought the Stalkers from home to the front line. herO had overstepped. This time around, herO doesn't overstep. He is holed up in his natural, and with the third base actually mining somewhat, this makes a lot of sense. One Stalker instantly taken down there for herO, but the Adepts are standing strong, and the Stalkers cannot reach the Immortal unless herO moves out, which I don't think is the plan. I don't think it's the plan. Okay, not gonna lose the Immortal right there, which, by the way, has its barrier back up. Zoun continuing to just invest in the Stalkers as much as he possibly can. Only a 3-worker difference. Those Adepts' last few shots before they died in Zoun's main base evened up the result. The probe count, plus herO being able to sneak some probes every once in a while, especially on the hidden base, has now even led to a possibly being ahead in probes. And Zoun has no idea. Zoun is thinking, I still have him on the ropes, I still have him on 2 bases, his main base is mining out, same as mine, but that's not necessarily true. There is a third base, but there's the blink forward. One Immortal goes down, second Immortal will go down. herO only left with Zealots and Stalkers. Another Immortal was not produced nearly fast enough. That is so long to go. Probes are once again pulled, but it might be too late. We needed the probes pulled during the actual fight, not when you're on their last few army units. I don't know, maybe herO has to give it the space, but that would be too devastating. The supply is telling the tale at this point. herO, one too many move-outs, I think. I mean, specifically the move-out over here. I think that killed him. And then his Adepts harassing Zoun's economy didn't quite get the job done. Not when he was also pulling his own probes into the battle and losing so many of them. And there was a choice. herO could have made those Adepts on the attack to defend. Maybe then he actually keeps his units alive, and then maybe he has enough to defend all 3 bases as we know it. Zoun never going to know there's a third base. But Zoun does take game number 3 after a lot of back and forth, and will advance to the winner's match. And herO now waits in the losers. And now we have our second match. It is going to be Bunny in the bottom right and Classic in the top left. That PvP ended with a bit of a banger, actually. There's a lot going on. A little difficult to track, but hindsight 2020, maybe if herO had kept more Adepts at home. Yes, he would have not killed as many probes, so he would have fallen behind on probes, but with that secret third, you know, maybe he could have retained more units, not had to been so desperate to replace them, didn't have to pull probes over and over and over and over again, and then actually saturated the base unbeknownst to Zoun. But that's big what if. We're moving on to a TVP. Classic, I would say, is the favorite here, but Classic has proven to maybe be a little more vulnerable to some of the Terran shenanigans. It's kind of funny. herO seems surprisingly vulnerable to SCV pulls, even when he sees them, and he knows what he should do against them. But he doesn't seem to be fazed by some of the earlier tricks a Terran can pull out. So, to put it, you know, in player terms, herO was really good against Gumiho, and Gumiho was doing a bunch of, like, 1-base stuff and 2-base stuff, but he was less good versus Maro, and Maro was doing almost nothing but SCV pulls. Classic is like the opposite, where it feels like Classic, I mean, first of all, he didn't have as many SCV pull tests because he didn't get there, but second of all, just, yeah, because he would lose to some of the earlier shenanigans that Terrans can throw out. You know, the tank pushes on 2 bases, maybe even the occasional full-on 1-base build that he neglects to scout because you assume there's going to be a command center. That's kind of the funny thing happening between, you know, the top 2 Protoss in the Korean region. Maybe Classic is also vulnerable to SCV pools, but like I said, we didn't actually get that far in some of his previous PVTs. But I think it also makes sense just as far as the stylings of both Protosses in my brain, where it's like the earlier the Terran attacks, the more that hero's kind of natural aggressiveness and map presence and micro skill is going to work out for him. Because it just seems like he always knows about it, and he always knows what to do against it, and he always nips it in the bud, you know. Where Classic, he has a little bit more of that macro kind of defend, fall back type of Protoss. And so maybe he misses the opportunity to nip something in the bud, and it kind of snowballs. But then if he does get to play his game up until an SCV pool point, he's probably going to be pretty good. This is all just theorizing, though, because Bunny has not yet shown us all that can be TVP from him. We saw a lot of Maru in the Dallas tournament, for instance, and not nearly as much of the Bunny. Bunny does go for a command center after factory into the 1-1-1. Is something that Classic is going to be able to see with a hallucination opener. The Stalker and the Sentry are available. Twilight Council's coming down too. Very odd position. It kind of helps maybe against like a Hellion run by. I mean, it does. Not even kind of, it does. It's just I've never really seen this put down there. So that's cute. Anyway, it's going to be 2 additional gateways added on. And we have been seeing the non-robo from Classic. In fact, that nearly killed him in one of those games, didn't it? Well, it should have killed him. Or was that herO as well? But if Protoss have been doing this, and there was a game where the Protoss went no robo, very intentionally, just, Classic does have the robo actually, but so, and then it just coincidentally faced against a couple of Banshees, and it was a super bad time. But that's not quite what this is. The gateways were emphasized, but the robo does come down. Bunny has gone for a simple Cyclone Marine drop, which Classic is pretty in the know of, seeing that it is a 1-1-1 with a tech lab. Cyclone is very likely. So dealing with the drop isn't necessarily difficult, but perhaps dealing with the drop plus preempting a tank push, that can sometimes be a little trickier. We got a 3-1-1 setup at this point as Bunny just really gives up on the drop, actually. Realizes it's not going to do very much, which is probably true. But now he's got a few more units then to go with a tank push, like I've been talking about. He's actually almost hiding the tank, which the Marines push away the hallucination anyway. Yeah, he's hiding the tank. That's interesting. So he's not only hiding the tank, but he's hiding the medevac with the tank. So I'm trying to think of how much this confuses Classic. So he's like, wow, you don't have a tank yet? What have you been doing with the factory? Okay, your medevac's not at home. It must be somewhere on my side of the map. Although if that is Classic's thinking, he clearly doesn't care about it that much. As he sends all of his units forward. Gets a 3rd Nexus too, so he's not playing, you know, Ultra 2 base, although he is going in the Charged Storm. But 2 tanks are available. And so if Classic was like, oh, he doesn't have tanks yet, and he was going to be a bit more aggressive with the Stalkers, well, that plan is obviously ruined. I think it was just something cute, you know, not really game-breaking, what Bunny did with that medevac, just a little more cloudiness to the situation is neat. Oh, unfortunately, we'll lose a 3rd tank, and oh, the stim was definitely going to be a target. The SCVs pull preemptively, making sure that it will finish, and it will finish. What Classic now has to worry about is that those aren't the only SCVs pulled. Yeah, he cancels his 3rd Nexus, gets a bunch of shield batteries, desperately hopes that... I actually don't know why he has a single High Templar. Feedback? Okay, yeah, feedback. Fair enough, but that's not going to be enough. That's an Archon. Stalkers were recalled, but this is a disaster for Classic. It's a very fast SCV pull, a 6-minute SCV pull. You know, no combat shields here. But Classic, you'd think would be a little more paranoid. Yeah, paranoid of an SCV pull. Of course, diving in, getting the tank, that was good, that was great, but then staying there might have been an issue. I mean, I think he's dead, which is why I'm analyzing at this point, but we do have one last herO. One Archon not controlled! Oh, why aren't you helping? Not that it would help enough. Actually, that Archon would have been big. That Archon would have been quite nice to have. Hello? That Archon could have gotten a lot of shots on the Marines, actually. Obviously, it gets focus fired at this point. Looks like it wouldn't do anything. But I think if it was part of the fight, it would have gotten a lot of Marines. Okay, well, anyway. Yeah. So, Classic thinking that, if there is going to be an SCV pool, maybe anticipating it being a later one. Thought he had some time to do a little Blink Stalker action. But what really sucks is that even though that third tank being killed looks huge, because it was such a fast SCV pool, even the Stalkers simply being out of position at that time really screws over Classic's chances. His Observer, I guess, maybe missed the move of the SCVs too, because I feel like at that point that's when you go, oh, shit, and you pull the Stalkers back, but maybe not. But then he maybe could have dived on that stim then instead, which he kind of just meandered about. I don't know. But I do think the Stalkers being on the front lines, prepared for the SCV pool, is really one of the best things you can do. If they're right here and the tank's on siege and the SCVs get pulled, of course, they take a couple of pot shots, they run back. Take a couple of pot shots, they run back. All that time, of course, building as much as you can back at home. Which I felt like Classic was delayed even on those last minutes static defenses. And yes, the Stalkers were not a part of the slowing down of the push. And that's really what they need to do. Recalling them as the push is already here is as effective as you saw, which is not particularly effective. But yeah, it seems like, every time I'm like, well, the Protoss should know this is going to be happening. The Protoss is still so rightly concerned with other things, with other issues in TVP, that it's not what they solely focus on, but that can seem like the reason they die to it. It's like, well, maybe you should only solely focus on this. Like I said, maybe Classic was just anticipating a later SCV pool, one that would have waited for the extra 4th and 5th barracks, for instance, or combat shields. But nope, about as fast as you can do. GG, Bunny wins game number 1. So, bottom left, Bunny, up 1, top right, Classic. Tokamak will be the setting, and Classic, kind of has to let that one go, I suppose. It's not very surprising to see the Terran's SCV pool, but there are a variety of SCV pools. I mean, theoretically, you could talk even about a 1-base SCV pool, which doesn't usually go very well because the 1-base is so telegraphed that you can really prepare for it, and it's lacking that punch that a 2-base one would have. Even if you scout it and you see it and you try and prepare for it, you can still die to it. The 1-base, it's like as soon as you scout it, it's not going to work out. But then there's all the 2-base varieties, of which we see all the time. But then Bunny showed us one of the fastest ones that includes stim, I suppose. I guess there's the caveat. So there's an SCV pool that is only 3 barracks, 1 factory. You don't have anything from the starport, right? And that's pretty quick as well. Then you have the, very early attack, even earlier than that, but I think it's still on 2 bases, where it's like a combat shield only push. Not usually one where SCV pool is accompanied, but I'm sure it exists. And then you have 5 racks, factory, starport, 2-base, SCV pool, which was a lot of what we saw from Maru, I believe, in Dallas, that one in particular. And then you can even SCV pool on 3 bases. There's no law against it. But the 2-base one is the most popular. And the amount of stuff in the 2-base the amount of versions, it's just difficult for the Protoss to track. Because if you do think of it from the Protoss's point of view, it is easy to be like, well, the Protoss should just expect the SCV pool. What is this fool doing? And to a certain extent, that sometimes is just a little baffling, where some Protosses do seem to just totally forget that an SCV pool is possible, despite being very meta. But other times, you got to give them some credit. Other times, you got to be like, well, they're also in a position where they would think, if I don't read this correctly, if I over-defend against something that isn't actually on the way, then I could be in trouble in a potential macro game. Which is true. And so we see occasionally the Terrans, you know, 1, 2, 3 SCV pull early all-ins, whatever it is, and then boom, suddenly a macro game. And that can really throw the Protoss off. But as far as the variety of 2 base all-ins, I think there's also the idea that, okay, well, if he does this version, I could probably get Storm, which maybe was what Classic was hoping to do. Maybe if that 4th and 5th barracks were added on and we waited for combat shields and then we SCV pulled, as the Adept does go down, doesn't get the Reaper either, then maybe I would have had Storm, and then I would have felt a lot better about the SCV pool. So there's complications, but one of the first things, one of the first most important things about dealing with an SCV pool, or really, you know, any type of aggression in that fashion, I guess, one that just kind of charges through the middle of the map, no fanciness with drops or anything. The most important thing in dealing with that a lot of times is Stalker positioning. If we're going to go ahead and assume that everyone gets Blink Stalkers in this matchup. But the Stalker positioning is usually what really, I would say, makes or breaks the effectiveness of an SCV pool. Because if those 10 Stalkers are on your ass from your natural to their natural, it's so much different. The amount of time that buys, the amount of Marines that die, the amount of SCVs that die or have to be pulled back and microed and blah, 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 blah. Like, it really does impact things. So in the Protoss, when a Protoss just doesn't have Stalkers ready right there, I'm just like, oh, well, this has already reduced, like, its chance of defending by 50%. I don't know, something like that. And speaking of Stalker positioning, this is one of the reasons why Banshees can be such a great addition to a potential SCV pool. And we do have Bunny having gone for a 1-rack expand, very typical stuff, 3 racks, 1-1. Okay, sure, but he could still be an SCV pool, obviously. The Banshee is a great addition because it can either kill a bunch of probes and or drag those Stalkers out of position, because you have to respect the Banshees. Eventually there will be 2, and a shield battery will not cover your bases. So that's why the Banshees can be especially cruel, even if they don't seem like they're doing a whole lot of damage. Plus, how many times have we seen 2 Banshees not focus fire down? Maybe there's too much emphasis on charge, for instance, charge lots, and then the Stalkers can't shoot down the Banshees, and the Banshees just, they wreck face. They have really good DPS. Now, is that what Bunny's planning on, SCV pulling after the Banshees appear? I'm not positive, but I think it'd be a pretty good idea. If you lose the Banshees, though, that's not something you can do, and this Banshee was pretty brazen about going into the main, but it turns out that its courage is rewarded. The Observer was out of place, although not now, so I'll take that back. I will take that back. That was not rewarded. Oh, this is a very early push. Okay, so we're not waiting for stim, clearly. We're not even waiting for add-ons at this point. We are going, but with a very, very small SCV pool. This is definitely more of the pressure, not all-in version. But it does suck to lose that second Banshee. And this does not seem like a lot of units. Classic does blink forward, take out the tank, loses a couple of Stalkers of his own, but are taking out the anchor to this push. That is pretty worth it. More Stalkers being warped in, and some of the Stalkers blink back to retain themselves. Sentry gets obliterated. But at this point, I think we're just waiting for maybe charge. Yeah, and a handful of Zealots, and then we can take care of this. Bunny, in a bit of a difficult situation, he can't pull back. But continuing with this might also not reward him. Stalkers actually end up getting a tank on the reinforcement line. That's a good split of Stalkers, too. Enough to obviously take out the tank lickety split, but then also to continue, going mano-mano with the withdrawal. Then you're going to collect the forces, get a good old sandwich going, and Bunny is in some trouble. Only 1 Banshee remains. Thankfully, the Observer is a little bit slower, and 1 was sniped, but here it comes now. The Marines are all gone, and the Banshee is sure to fall. Actually loses its cloak anyway, without energy. And Bunny is in so much trouble. That did not affect Classic very much. The probes were not killed. The Stalker losses were not big enough, and he even gets a cancel on the 3rd CC that was placed probably in a hurry more than anything else. Maybe it was some SimCity idea, but either way, it's gone. Bunker's gonna fall, tank is fallen, taking the high ground is gonna hold for now. The Classic isn't even really investing into this terrible amount. He is getting Warp Prism now, but he's also getting a 4th Nexus, the upgrade's finishing, and the Warp Prism is just now on the way. So it's going to be a little while. You get out on probes. Yep, you could go into your second upgrade, and he could still provide all of this pressure, or potentially win the game. Like, he could win the game off of very lazy pushes, actually. Just being like, yeah, I'm going to win. Like, let's just go. Doesn't necessarily need to wait for a perfect timing, you know, with +2 and extended thermal lance and 2 or 3 Colossus, and then that's when I'm really prepared. You don't need to wait for that. Bunny is pretty dead already. He's down 20 workers, down 10 army supply. Combat shield's not quite finished as he actually pushes out, which, oof, does not feel very good. Warp Prism in the main are going to take care of these SCVs so they can't be pulled. And the tanks! No, the tanks are found low. Boy, that's it. That is it. Classic. Probably could have been lazier about that. I don't mean to say that Classic is lazy. I'm just saying how far ahead he was. But he actually bothered to do a little dance, you know, into the main base, into the micro and the natural. Probably didn't have to, but he was so far ahead. And as I said, Bunny, it did not look like a good push. It, I think was seen from Classic. It was known about. Classic also, I believe, opened up 3 gateway blinks, so he had the ability to make a lot of stalkers if he wanted to. He was real quick about that charge immediately after blink. And then, while he didn't actually get any amounts of stoppage on it, it did kind of arrive very quickly. There was just a good amount of stalkers. He also did not probe up as much as he could have. His base was not fully saturated when the push actually arrived, so that means that he was actually using his 3 gateways to produce units. And if you are going to just pretty consistently produce stalkers, Bunny's going to need a bit more firepower when he does that push. So GG's. Classic takes care of that one pretty easily. In my theory, not enough SCVs were pulled. Just clearly. And now it's tied up 1-1, going on a pylon. Top left Bunny, bottom right Classic. Classic actually in this series having some trouble with the SCV pool and then handling the even faster push, not really SCV pool, much better, so kind of the opposite of what I was talking about. But I suppose it is also dependent on what player he is facing. Classic had some trouble against Gumiho, for instance. That's where I was drawing a lot of that. He has trouble in the early game from. But then he was able to take on Cure, right? It was Cure, I believe. He was able to take on Cure, and even in a macro game was pretty good, and it was actually very entertaining. So, and then Bunny is kind of this 4th Terran that comes out besides Gumiho, Cure, and Maru. Bunny's the 4th Terran here, who plays very aggressive, who's a real risk taker. Very unlike his personality. He's actually like really sweet and like soft-spoken in real life. But yeah, in StarCraft 2, he's just, balls to the wall here. And that might be something that Classic is actually a little more familiar with, a little more comfortable against, being like, well, this is Bunny, and this is what he's going to do, and I am prepared for these types of things. But the SCV pool did still get him. It did still get him. But I also think that's one of those, all right, if I ever see a similar setup, I will just leave the stalkers on the front. And I think that already goes a long way to helping to defend. It's going to be a factory expand this time. Probe sees the double gas. Classic going for 7x core, then Nexus. No big news here so far. Classic dealt with the Banshees last game really well too. And I think obviously didn't help Bunny's push. Bunny was hoping that the Banshee just running in would at least distract long enough that he could get into a proper position, which it technically did. I would say Bunny's position was pretty good. Maybe it could be a little closer, get on top of the shield battery with some tank shots. Maybe the probes are in a little more trouble. Yeah, okay, like that's certainly true. But it got pretty damn close. But it's just that the Banshee really didn't do anything. As far as the Banshee is concerned, I would say 6 probes for a cloak Banshee. And you usually get 2, so 6 probes each. That I think is where you start to say it's worth it as far as losing the Banshees. But then maybe not if you're considering the Banshee's necessity of distraction. Then maybe you don't go after the probe kills. Probe kills aren't as important. Or that you want the Banshees a part of the fight. then you just, again, don't want the Banshees to be killed. But yeah, if Banshee's going to fall down, at least 6 probes would have been better. Would it have changed the game? I don't think so. But it just was not what it needed to do. It didn't kill a bunch of probes, nor did it really distract Classic to the point that he was like, oh no, a push. Like, he handled that very calmly. And then the second Banshee wasn't there to help out with the DPS on the front lines, while the engagement was still a little sketch, you know, well, it was still like a little scary. Stalker number wasn't quite up there. Charge lots weren't quite involved. Second Banshee wasn't there to add in. So maybe Bunny doesn't go for Banshees again in this game. He's going to go for that Cyclone opener, though. So this is actually looking very similar to the first game. It is... I think it would be unwise to do the exact SEV pool, though. I think part of the reason that Protoss still do have trouble against SEV pools, besides them being pretty good, is that the variety is there. You know, I got to worry about the openers. Like, is he going to Cyclone drop me? Does that actually do damage? Is he going to arrive with Banshees? Did I actually get an Observer? Is he going for the tank push like he did last game, in which case I gotta like get Stalkers now and maybe hold off on the economy, or is he doing another type of SEV pool that's later, and cutting probes at this point would actually hurt my situation in 2 minutes, you know? So that like the variety I think is really what's brutal about it. This time around, I suppose Bunny does commit a little more with the Cyclone. Remember, he just saw that he was seen in first game and was like, no, never mind, I don't want to do it. But it doesn't result in anything except a more injured medevac, so that wasn't really great. Barracks number 3 is on the way. This is very much identical to the first game, and I am scared he is doing the exact same build. Classic has gone into a 4-gate, by the way, so his first game build, by the way, was 3-gate Robo. Literally like 3 gates first, then Robo. This is a slightly different build. It's 2 gates, Robo, then 2 more gateways. And he is going to have the Templar Archives on 2 bases again. So, I mean, we're kind of getting to the same destination. Oh, but he's adding on 2 more gateways beyond that. Okay, never mind. Yeah, he's not going for a 3rd base. Well, maybe he does, but it's prioritizing the gateways first. So that is a more crucial difference, I would say, in the build order here for Classic. The timing of his gateway Robo maybe not as important, but the Templar Archives, 2 bases, not having to cancel a 3rd, awkwardly start building a shield battery, Stalkers again on the front line, ready for potential push. This should be much better for Classic's defenses. Now, if Classic is misreading this, and this is not going to be a 2-base SEV pool, then this could be kind of ugly. This could be kind of weird. Oh no, he goes for the stem. Oh, he's going to get it this time. This is a little earlier. This is a little earlier. SEV pool is good. SEV pool is so hot right now. In this case, saving the stim. The Stalkers are going to see that they're actually well, that maybe wasn't... Oh, no, that's 1 Stalker. Never mind, that's fine. So this time around, the Stalkers saw that they were combating the actual army. The army hadn't just bypassed this and ran across the map. So we know he knows he has some time. Stim was saved. That's good, but that is some lost mining time. And then the Stalker retention was good, which I think is really important there. Obviously, if Stim had gone down, that would have been beautiful, but you gotta take what you can get. And the Observer was scanned, so it will not see the SEV pull, but I really feel like this time around, Classic has been preparing solely for this. Storm is actually 75% done as opposed to 0% like the first game. His 3rd base came down. I think it must have been a bit later, and while it is on the way, it's not something that Classic is really depending on having, and he could actually cancel it. If he can warp in more units, then he should cancel it, if the gateways are ready to go. So far, not canceling it, but already there's a siege far ahead of the actual production and the actual base. So again, another good thing. And the best thing, Storm is done. Storm is done, Storm is hit, and now the Zealots will rip through all of these injured units, take out the tank as well. This is super one-sided. A complete reversal of game 1 as well. I mean, this Classic just was confident it was going to work, so that's why he didn't bother canceling the 3rd. He was like, I got enough. I'm fine. And he is fine. He's more than fine. He catches the 3 medevacs heading towards the main base. Catches 1, wants the 2nd, but finds the units anyway. And Bunny is SOL. Sometimes in StarCraft, commentators will say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. In this case, in the SEV pool case, I don't think that's the saying that you want to be talking about. I think you gotta keep it changing. and you got to keep the Protoss on their toes. You can still SCV pull, of course, but it is difficult. If you're just going to do the pretty much the exact same thing. And there's Bunny tapping out. GG. GG. Classic wins 2-1. Fixes his game 1 mistakes, basically, and will advance to the winners match, where they face Zoun in a PvP. The winners match will be a PvP in the top right. It is Zoun, and in the bottom left, it is Classic. Am I casting EWC Mrs. Streamer? Is there a Mr. Streamer? I will be. It's not announced talent-wise, but since... Who's patrolling it? No one, that's who. It'll be pretty much the usual crew. No surprises as far as I know. Although the setup is a little weird. As of right now, they have told me that I am a strictly analyst role, which I think all of us are going to try and argue against once we're in the venue. Because I don't think my value is necessarily as an analyst. I mean, I think I could do it, obviously, and I do a great job, and it'd be great. But it feels... I mean, I've never really presented myself as someone who, like, you know, wanted to only be an analysis person, desk-wise. And it would just suck, I can tell you right now. Like, that would just be a terrible job. I would not like to do it. Roddy's okay with it, but I'm like... All of us got into casting. Like, none of us got into desking. That's so stupid. Anyway, and then there's also a B stream on site, which is also really weird. But I don't really know what that entails. So, yeah. Anyway, we got a PvP. Zoun has been quite cheesy. He did go for Proxy Stargate and then into a Canna Rush. That's what it's called. A Canna Rush. And then, I mean, the last game between Zoun and herO wasn't exactly a cheese, but it was very aggressive. It was prioritizing the 4 gateways. Was it 5 at the end? Because he had 2 proxies. But way before a 3rd Nexus. And that is that aggressive maneuver you can do around that timing of the 3rd Nexus. But anyway, it is both players going for a proxy at this moment, so this is where it gets funny. This is where the fun begins, as Star Wars memes would say. It's Proxy Robo for Classic in the middle of the map, and Proxy Stargate for Zoun off to the side. I like it makes the voices on cast and analysis. Yeah, well, that's how StarCraft's always done it. The thing is, most other esports don't do it that way, and a lot of times they'll just revolve, or people who are like hiring talent or setting up the structure of the show, they'll like hire different people, right? And a lot of times when they hire new people or move new people into another video game, they come in with a preconceived notion. They're like, well, this is what always happens. So, for instance, we've also had situations where they're like, well, what are the caster groups? Like, what are the caster duos? And we're like, we don't have that. We just do what we want. So that's why we're like, we're just gonna argue their ear off when we're actually there, and tell them that, like, no, we can all do the things. It's okay. But anyway, Adepts are actually gonna be winning out there for Classic, which, I mean, isn't the end of the world for Zoun, but when you're talking about 1 base versus 1 base, it feels like every unit is really going to count. Fortunately for Zoun, when he loses 1 Adept, he finds the Proxy Robo. Now, I knew there was a pylon somewhere. Both of them knew that, but they didn't know what exactly that technology was. So Zoun knows it's Proxy Robo. Classic does not know it's Proxy Stargate, but he did probably witness a little of that first series, and he does seem to be very paranoid of the potential of a Proxy Stargate. Now, he could have watched the first series. He also could have just wanted to do this as a precursor anyway to a potential push. The Adept drop. If you're Adept dropping, the units aren't moving across the map, why not put them in the main base? Right? Waiting. In case. But the more that he sees in the main base with the Adept harass, the more that he literally scouts with it, the more that this is going to become like, hey, wait a minute. What is missing? What's going on? Right, Stargate's probably waiting somewhere. But then, conversely, the more that time goes by, oh god, the more that Classic is going to be like, nah, I don't know what it is, but it's not an Oracle. Oh no. The off-timing Oracle is going to work by the looks of things. Now the question will be, what wins the game? A total destruction of probes? Okay, 2 Stalkers were warped in, thank goodness. Or the attack to the front. Zoun obviously has been in the know about the proxy robo, knows it will be attacking him. Only got 1 shield battery, which seems a little low. Sentry also a little late, but good enough. Double Oracle is going to swoop on in. Let's see how many probes that kills, while Classic just hits away on the buildings right now. The probes actually perfectly fine. Oh, and he lost the Oracle too. If that Oracle was for sure going to die, he might as well have not tried to be fancy with it, you know? He would have just let it sack itself on maybe 2 or 3 extra probes, but this is a disaster for Zoun, and he agrees. He just taps out right then and there, knowing that he can't hold the push, I guess, which, you know, he might be able to hold the high grounds, like some theoretical, like pull the probes, more reinforcements, but the game would not be good for him, so he just taps out. GG's. Now, I think there are some people who really don't appreciate desk time. And, you know, if they don't want to do desk, I can kind of understand it. But honestly, sometimes it's more just being cool with the group. Because, like I said, no one really gets into this to be a desk person. So, you know, if 2 people are like, we're not going to desk, then that means that everyone else has a desk more, and that's just not really cool. And no one cares about the desk anyway, actually. So even if you have nothing to include, if you have nothing to add, just desk. Just to be cool. Desk person. It's a desk of the desk head. Yeah. These PvPs are going by fast. The TVP was hardly any slower. In the bottom right, we have Zoun. The top left, it is Classic. Classic's Proxy Robo wins out with some good safety. If he had blindly gone for the push without any consideration for an Oracle, or he gets like a shield battery just in case, but, you know, doesn't get anything else, so many probes would have died. And then Zoun doesn't tap out when he does, because there's a good chance that he would have had 25 probes to 16, or even less. And then that's way more doable. You survive the first or second attack of the Robo, the Immortals, and then they're recovering their economy, but you've been mining the entire time. Eventually you break out, and there's that back and forth, you know. But if the Oracles basically do 0 damage, and for all intents and purposes that was 0 damage, like, then, yeah, not much to do. Not much to do. A Classic is really important about that is that he did mind the proxy Stargate, even though he didn't technically know that's what the build was. He had some evidence. He had the knowledge of what Zoun did to herO in their first game. He had the sort of tell that was the 2 Adepts initially. Now, Classic also went 2 Adepts, and he went Proxy Robo, so it's not always a proxy Stargate with that, obviously, but it's like a little like, okay, well, you know, it's very similar to that first game that he did versus herO, so like I should be really wary about this. And then you see that there is no technology in the main base with your Warp Prism Adept harassment, and then you're like, well, what does this leave? Either he's proxy roboing me as well, which I guess could have happened, but there was a lot of Stalkers in the main, so I don't think that was actually possible to get that many Stalkers as well as be building off the Robo. I'm not sure about that, but Classic probably would be. And then, you know, what else is possible? Technically a Dark Shrine, I suppose. You know, like Proxy Twilight Council Dark Shrine. But that, again, there was so many Stalkers being built in the main. I mean, all this takes gas. So the Proxy Stargate also taking gas. Obviously, you can afford a good amount of Stalkers even with it, but I think there is just some telegraphing from Zoun's first series. Moving on to the second game here. Thank you, JTN, for the 5 gifted subs. The second game starts up with not much to say. Stalker Sentry for both parties means a Nexus will be coming down. And it looks like they're both aware of that. But Classic has a Pylon to deal with, so Zoun should be getting ahead on that Nexus. Should be feeling good about that decision to Pylon block. Classic could have, but he didn't. And so his Nexus is what? 10 seconds behind? I don't know the math on it. I do not know the math on it. But I could see there being an argument for that Pylon not being worth it. Yes, 100% it delays a Nexus that was definitely going down, but you did also lose 100 minerals. Anyway. Clearly Classic didn't think it was worth it, but Zoun did. Twilight Council about at the same time. Shield Battery on the front there for Zoun as Classic actually goes for a bit of an attack. Now this is not so different. It's just that there are hallucinations. But 3 Stalkers would be a little more of a punch. The Shield Battery protects the 3 Sentries appropriately. And Classic will be finding much damage. They both are proxying Pylons again. They are mirroring each other. Aside from the Sentry vs. Stalker production, this is very mirrored. Now, at this point in time, I believe you can still count Pylons. I don't know when Protoss stop counting Pylons. I'm sure there's a point, but I believe at this point... they both are doing a Dark Shrine. I actually haven't seen this in years. I'm sure I've seen this before, but it has been a long time. I think Zoun picked up on it, though. So as I was saying, I believe you can count Pylons. And they both had the same amount of Pylons. Did both of them fake an additional Pylon? It looks that way because they have too much supply. I think they are both faking each other very convincingly, but maybe Zoun is like, wait a second. I'm not convinced by this, because this is a very fast forge for when you're also trying to get a Dark Shrine. Yeah, 3rd Nexus will be coming down in normal games. In fact, Classic is already getting one. It's Zoun who's changing things up. He's gone for a proxy gateway. He might be trying to make this... I might be thinking 2, like, 4D chests right here. And he does get +1, by the way. But he maybe is first of all, maybe legitimately going to go into Stalker follow-up. Oh, he fakes the +1. Oh, I love it. Oh. Okay. Alright, okay. I think Classic's Forge is more of that +1 Forge timing. But Zoun, even if his Forge was faster, never actually got a cannon, so... 3DTs are going to slip on by. Classic. Oh, he's gonna kill the Nexus. Cancel it anyway, but he's gonna kill so many probes. Zoun only sent 1 DT. Okay, no, he also sent 3 DTs. It was just a little bit later. They both faked each other out so well. Zoun is losing more probes faster. Classic pulls his probes. Also, his 3rd Nexus is actually on the way. Zoun has maybe a few more Stalkers. Not even. No, not even. Classic has 1 more DT. These could be turned into Archons. Zoun's trying to get cannons where he can. That's over next to his production, but Zoun seems pretty out of luck. Just because Classic... Well, you know, he didn't actually get that Forge. He's trying to build it still. In a very, very vulnerable position. And there's Zoun's DT. It's going to find it. You got to kill the Forge itself. You can't, you know, kill the... Okay, well, it's too late. A cannon will be made. Now the question is, can you kill the cannons? Classic has the ability to make 2 cannons, almost 3. Forge is going to be targeted down. I don't know if he has time to kill the Forge and then the cannons, though. Yeah, 3rd cannon definitely worth it. More DTs coming in. Zoun is trying to make this work, but a good probe block. A great probe block. That probe block is going to save Classic. Classic is going to win the game because of that probe block. At least 1 cannon will finish. It's not the ones on the mineral line. It's the ones outside. Stalkers hurriedly trying to kill... Oh, wait a second. All the cannons are killed. The DTs were able to kill the ones on the mineral line. The Stalkers kill the ones that were outside. Classic does not hold. Well, wait a minute. I don't know. A cannon or two are available for Zoun, but again, Nira's production, not Nira's economy. Both of them are going to be losing all of their Nexus. Classic could try to win the base race? He sees the proxy... No, I keep saying proxy. He sees the Nexus. It's not even necessarily hidden. It's just the... this is a base race. I got to put a Nexus where I think he might not find it, and that's unfortunately found. Oh, Classic will tap out. Yeah. Wow. I thought Classic had it, but Zoun bringing in the remnants of his army to kill that third cannon. Well, and Classic also not having that much of an army. You know, he only was able to bring back 3 Stalkers. That was a hard one to call. Very hard to call, but Zoun does it. GG's. All right, 1-1. Classic sent DTs to the last Nexus and managed to destroy it. Isn't it a draw? What a crazy game that was. And the bottom right now of Pylon for the final map here, it is Zoun. And the top left, it is Classic. I can't believe I saw a mirrored build like that. As I said, I know I've cast it. But it has been so long since I've seen double Dark Shrine. And they both were identical in the way that they were trying to convince the other person that it was not a Dark Shrine. The Pylon specifically, I believe. Which, to be clear, I'm not quite up to date on that, but if I recall, the last time I saw a similar situation happen, one of the pros interviewed mentioned seeing not enough pylons at that point. So I'm pretty sure like it's down to the pylon count, and they both made additional ones. And then there was an additional fake from Zoun. He got such a fast forge, but he faked the +1. So I mean, this is where you just gotta interview the guy. You just gotta interview him. You just gotta be like, did you have any suspicion? Is that why you got a faster forge? Because I don't see any other reason to get it. Because if he was gonna follow up his ET attack with a +1 stalker attack, I mean, that would have been hard to achieve. I mean, not impossible. It would have been taking so long to actually get the +1, even with the forge being that fast. And obviously, he didn't get the +1 immediately. He waited until the hallucination saw it, and there was a total fake. I mean, I think that had to have been a what-if forge. Or maybe it was just a further fake. But then Classic's forge was about as, I feel like, normal as a forge timing gets. But, I mean, an earlier forge would continue to suggest that it's an Dark Shrine. I guess Zoun committed more to the faking. It didn't really end up mattering as far as, like, you know, because both of them, their DTs arrived at the same time and they both were like, oh shit. But I think maybe Zoun having... I don't even know exactly how you're supposed to play that out better with the knowledge that each player has. And that's what's important. Like, we have the God vision. We could say, like, well, only if, but I'm not even sure. And obviously, it would be very different for the players. It's absolutely crazy that it happened. It happens so rarely. Then on to game number 3. Very different start, actually. We got 2 Adepts from Classic and 2 Stalkers from Zoun, something that Classic is actually going to be able to see. Whereas I believe Zoun's probe, he skedaddled. He did see that it was 2 gateway opener, which is pretty common in Korea, but still worthy of checking, I suppose. And he has yet to see that it is Adepts. The probe's going to go back in to double check the presence of a Nexus, which is very important. Nexus is here, though. Stargate for Zoun, no, not in proxy this time. Just simply back at home. And this would be scouted pretty immediately if it was a sentry opener, which again, Zoun doesn't know that it's not. But the thing is, he might be totally okay with being scouted. It's still a useful tool, even if you know it's on the way. But it is Adepts, actually. So at this point, Zoun knows that it wasn't a sentry opener, seeing as the 2 sentries are here right now. And he also is going to threaten the sentries. He's going to threaten the entire game is what he's going to do. But by threatening the sentries, he also might make sure they don't send a hallucination across the map, because they might want a Guardian Shield, or they might want all the force fields they can buy. So that's really important. Just a couple of Stalkers providing that pressure. Stalkers also targeting the shield battery makes sense. That could lead to the snowball. Classic with no hallucination does not know about the Stargate, but also, probably more importantly, doesn't know about the proxy gateway. Seeing that there are 2 more Stalkers, so a total of 4 for Zoun does suggest a lot of pressure, potentially. You know, it is usually a precursor to something that's very invested aggressively. And we also know that there are 6, and he's about to see that. So Classic, I already figured that out. Second shield battery's on the way. Main base still very vulnerable looking, though, as the Oracle is coming across the map. Classic is fully invested on the front line, has nothing to defend the main. Great force fields, though. Cut off about 3 Stalkers. 3 Stalkers exactly are going to go down. I would say those are really good, but the Oracle in the main is going to kill, let's say, 4 probes. That recall was not good. Wait, what? That is funny. Oh no, the pylon's gonna go down. Hold on a second, the pylon's gonna go down. Charge up from the shield battery, charge up from the shield battery. Guardian shield, force fields. He's desperately trying to save it. He does save it. Plus now Zoun is captured and loses the Stalkers, trying to dive after it, but the Oracle goes back into the main. Stalkers are there, but Adepts are there too, as Zoun somehow slipped those by. So many probes going down. Oracle falls, but Classic is going to lose 12 probes. But Zoun is only on 1 base. Zoun is only on 1 base. There is no way that Zoun wins this. Classic has the army supply. He has 2 Nexus, and he will recover that economic damage. This did not go according to plan. Yeah, that recall was so funny. He's like expecting the Stalkers to be recalled, and then the sentries show up, and it's like, well, I mean, okay, the sentries are fine. I should clarify. I mean, I said it was a bad recall. I shouldn't have said bad. I just was like, it's the recall I wasn't expecting is what it was. The shields, you know, obviously are affected now by the sentry, so it's fine. But it's the fact that sentries weren't a part of the fight at the front that I was a little more concerned about. But they did come out to the front. In fact, their off timing led to Zoun believing he could kill the pylon because the sentries were out of place. And that's what led him to over-investing into it. So the sentries, they're off-timing. Their return to the front couldn't have been better timed. That is funny. But yeah, Zoun is going to fall here. Classic advances first out of this group. Now we're going to go on to the losers match. Yeah, he got the pylon. It's a moral victory. But the losers match is going to be herO versus Bunny. This is the losers match. Whoever loses here is out of the GSL. In the bottom left, we have herO. In the top right, it is Bunny. The winner will go on to the decider match versus Zoun. So herO could get his revenge, or Bunny could face yet another Protoss. He already threw some of his builds up against Classic, and actually repeated a build, which ultimately ended in his loss. I don't think those are the only builds that he has. I don't think Bunny literally has 2 builds versus Protoss. I think he just was hoping the first one was, not a fluke. That the first game that he won was based off of Classic, just not having the, I don't know, the right skills to defend against it, basically. Like, because it's not that it's not known about. Like, Classic would know about it, but Bunny, I think, was just hoping, hey, it worked once. Maybe it'll work again. He'll think it's something different, or he'll defend too soon, or be too greedy again, or whatever it is. But yeah, it's Bunny needing to continue to throw out different builds. I think he can't do that same build versus herO, for instance. I would say that Bunny can't do the factory expand, cyclone drop into 3 barracks, SCV pull with stim, no combat shields. I don't think so. But, maybe you test it, maybe herO messes up too. Because herO, it seems like herO's problem with the SCV pools is that he can see it coming. He knows about it. He can see the build look identical to previous SCV pool builds. No, he's gonna get the SCV. That's so annoying. And he can see the SCV being literally pulled, and yeah, sure. But it seems like herO, what he does maybe incorrectly is prepare a a very dedicated anti-SCV pool response when staying the course for a large part of the game actually would be better. I'm thinking about his GSL finals versus morrow in particular, which herO eventually won, yes, but there were a couple of games that he arguably should have won, or won easier. against SEV pools. But it was, he was kind of doing this like, well, I see an SEV pool, I know it's going to be in the way. Let me go like fast charge Storm on 2 base. But then it kind of lost some of its power. It couldn't be prepared fast enough, basically. Like, Zealots aren't in high enough number when the SEV pull happened. So it's almost this weird thing where the knowledge of it almost seemed to hurt herO to a certain degree in those GSL finals. And then some of that happened again in their match in Dallas, too. But if there's one thing that herO should have been practicing, well, besides PvP, for this match, it would have been aggressive Terrans and SEV pools. Because Bunny's aggressive and SEV pools are very meta. Hallucination is going to see the opener. Factory Expand has turned into 3 Reaper, 2 Hellions. herO already has some SimCity set up for this. So the shield battery at the front also going to help him defend against pushes that go over here. And he has a wall on the high ground, so this is pretty much taken care of. Blink, obviously, as the bread and butter of Protoss. And those other games where, the Hellions actually do get in. The Sentry and Adept went after the Reapers instead of kind of standing guard, which is punishable by death, I want to say. But the 2 Hellions so far are not finding a lot of damage. Thankfully, 2 Hellions not one-shotting probes. They do get them low, and then maybe with the combo of the Reapers, suddenly 1, 2, 3, 4... maybe 5 more probes go down, maybe. But the Reapers were not allowed in. So I suppose the Adept Sentry, while they were out of position to help against the Hellions, they did push the Reapers way, way far back, so they really couldn't come in to get some of those last shots. A very typical opener here for herO. 2 gateways only? No, he's going 2 gases as well, so this isn't going to be into that faster 3rd Nexus. This might be into faster Storm. Charge Storm. Hallucination gets in, see the 3-1-1 set up with 2 bases. Doesn't have to be an SEV pool at this point. But it probably will be. And if you do go charge... what am I drop? Easily handled. If you do go charge Storm very quickly, in preparation for an SEV pool, it's not like you can't be aggressive with it. I mean, that does kind of flip the script to a certain degree, where if Bunny, say, does an SEV pull, goes for a 3rd CC, he is the one that then has to defend, has to be very careful, and actually could still die to something like that. But, it's 2-base Colossus. We've just been seeing so much Storm lately, with the meta being SEV pools, I suppose, right? Although it seemed to kind of happen before that, actually, but with the recharge, maybe. Anyway, the Robo is coming down. So a lot of the times in a more typical PvT, before the SEV pools were just rampant, you would see that Colossus come out after the 3rd Nexus. 2 gateway or 3 gateway 3rd Nexus. Then you would get your Forge and your Robotics Bay. Build up your Colossus count, right? That's what we see a lot of the times, for instance, in Europe. All the time. But the emphasis here on the Colossus first will give him some protection in case this does end up being an SEV pool. If it is one, it's not the same one. Bunny, different opener, different timing. He's getting stim and combat shields here. Warp Prism actually got very low. It went way too close to the bunker and the Marines. Woo! That's not supposed to happen. But fortunately, it does survive, as well as the 4 Stalkers, and only 4 Stalkers. Keep that in mind. Despite only being on 2 base, it's not like herO did invest a lot into producing units. He has invested instead into some technology, and then production, and then Nexus. But point is, he didn't just build 12 Stalkers as fast as he possibly could, which wouldn't really be doing a lot for him at this point. Marines and tank are on the way. Observer is going to see that, keeping a close eye on whether or not SCVs are pulled along with it. They are not. 3rd CC is coming down. Auto turret harassment goes down on the natural 2. That's additional 4 probes killed. Total of 10, actually, in this game. Make that 11. Not too shabby, actually. That's a good amount. 4 Stalkers finds the army. The Warp Prism also barely once again getting away. herO could definitely use that to micro the Colossus, provide some type of back attack on the tanks if need be. Great snipe on that one medevac. Yeah, a bit bold, but worked out right there, and that's herO. Sometimes, a bit bold, but it works out more often than not, I guess. There are some devastating losses herO has taken to maybe being a little too bold, but I think it works out more than it doesn't. Third Nexus, oh, supply block, whoopsie daisy. But third Nexus is done. Forge is on the way. Not particularly fast upgrades, a lot of safety going into herO's build, I believe, because of the anticipation of an SCV pool. So it's nice to have this game amidst the other TDP that we had, because it's kind of one of those examples of Terrans actually getting a pretty decent macro game because the Protoss had to respect the possibility of an SCV pool. They couldn't do 2 Gateway Nexus into a faster Forge, then obviously the Colossus production and all that. They had to prepare for something hitting before that. Now, that might be good news for the Terran, sorry, who also did get all of that probes worth of damage. But it's not like there weren't losses in that, so keep that in mind. This still favors Bunny, or herO, technically. But yeah, Bunny might be able to get to a 3rd CC, but this is where Protoss tend to start to control a little bit more of the map. With the 3, 4, Hallucinated Colossus, clever. Hallucinated Immortal as well. With 3 Colossus, you can really start to bully the Terran. Tanks are the only answer currently, as the Vikings are only popping out now. 2 of them, not a whole lot. Not going to take out the tanks that fast. The tanks do get a couple of shots off, but one of them goes down. A lot of the buffer for the Colossus are also going down, however. And this is getting a little scary for herO. Yeah, herO's going to have to actually respect this. He is missing some units to protect those Colossus from the impending concave. As the army of Bunny was able to survive for the most part, just that tank really being the biggest loss there. Otherwise, good number of Marauders left alive, good number of Medivacs left alive, and the Viking count was starting to increase. And there wasn't just a lack of, like, Zealots on the front line. There was also a lack of Stalkers to target those down. So that was pretty much, I think, the most crucial moment. Not to overstate it, but I think that was one of the most crucial moments. That was the push that determined how much herO was going to be able to bully Bunny in this game. If he was able to poke, run away, but stay, critically stay around, and then poke again, and then threaten with the Warp Prism, and then poke again, and then threaten with the Warp Prism, that's when the Terrans really start to feel like they don't have a chance. But Bunny was able to stand strong, now gets a pretty powerful counterattack. 4 Vikings is not a lot, but he still has the tank to help out, and a good possibility of a concave. Anti-armor missile also very helpful, nicely done. 1 Colossus very low as well. Pylon destroyed, 2nd Robo going to go down. Disruptor not getting a shot. And now going to go down as well. Oh, that's the first Robo. All Robos down. No more Robos. No more Splash. Nexus now being targeted as well. Forge could be in trouble. Bunny sees the opportunity. And the Stalkers are not with the Colossus. The Colossus already injured. Still, the anti-armor missile are going to go down. Disruptors shoot out. Are going to force the pickup. Nice blink to kill at least one of those Medivacs. But look at the supply. herO, I mean, he's feeling the repercussions, I think, of the early and mid game. If anyone looks at that push into Bunny's 3rd and is like, well, that's where he lost. I would not agree. I think that was herO's chance to test the waters and see if he really was staying afloat. If he really was, able to go mano-a-mano with the Terran. And he couldn't. And then Bunny did not have more of a green light to go ahead and counterattack and push into his opponent. Almost doubling his supply now, so even though herO seems to be holding on, I don't really believe it. 4th Nexus is done, so he's still on 3 bases, but he's lost very crucial production, still not replacing the Robos. herO might just go for an all-in at this point, trying to chase down all the reinforcements that he can, maybe opening up an opportunity for a Hail Mary counter-push. But there's still a lot of Terran left over. Woodermine's also getting some shots off. I mean to say a lot of Terran, but a lot of it's on the other side of the map. This could be herO's moment. He's finding about half of the army back at home, half of the army elsewhere. This could be herO's moment. Actually, it really could. herO trying to win the game here. 1 missile turret, surprisingly effective against that Colossus. Way to go, missile turret. Leaving the Stalkers alone, and they get bombarded by the Marauders. And that moment was fleeting. That is going to be it. This game is Bunny's. GG. We're on torches for game number 2. And in the bottom right, up 1. He is Bunny. In the top right, it is herO. Sending out a very fast probe, which he does pretty often. So I'm not really reading into this. But what an interesting game 1. That could not have fit better with my commentary, I think. Which is the warnings of the first TVP of the day. This is why Protoss don't always seem to have an immediate answer to SCV pools. In the 3rd game of Bunny Classic, it was obvious. It was the same build, and from the get-go, literally the opener to the production, everything was the same. And you can see what happens when a Protoss says, I know for a fact you are SCV pulling. They get exactly what they need, and they defeat it no problem whatsoever. But the last game, herO vs. Bunny, game number 1, is that evidence of what can happen when you think, okay, this guy is most likely going to SCV pull me. I'm pretty convinced that's going to be his plan. I'm going to prepare for that. And then you do take losses when you do defend in that way. As much as it can feel oppressive when a Protoss does get away with a 2-gateway expand, faster upgrades into the Colossus, and then they bully you on those 3 bases, right? As oppressive as that can feel, the goal, I'd say, for Terran is to not let them get there, but not just in a sense of let's end the game before then, which the SCV pool does, but also in a sense of let's make sure they can't be that greedy, which the threat of the SCV pool does to an extent. And so herO, you know, I think he really did take losses. Even though the resource trades were technically favorable as this probe, man, he's trying his damn best. Even though the resource trade favored herO, because Bunny had given a lot of units away in all the probe kills, I would say the probe kills, which were a good number, plus the lackluster economic build from herO, really is what made that game so favorable to Bunny. So it wasn't the push and that not working. That was just the final test. It was the, okay, did herO still have enough built up even when he did have to appreciate the SCV pool potential to actually take on Bunny's army? And the answer was no. Bunny had gotten a 3rd CC. He had gotten a good number of Marauders. The Raven was even helping out. The tanks were crucial. They were kept alive, of course, and then they were in position to help against the Colossus. It was great. It was perfect. And this is where you just kind of have to throw darts at a wall, I would say, which is that, you know, you could, you know, the Terran side of things, I suppose, as the Adept comes in for a little harassment, which actually going to delay this command center quite a bit. Bunny did not opt for the bunker this time. Not that that would have helped anyway. But instead trying to get the Cyclone, it's not going to be out for a little while. More so, I suppose I should say, Bunny opted not to go for more than the 2 Marines. That's more of the issue. 3 Marines would have cut it for the 1 Adept, but not the second one that is joining up. And whoops-a-daisy, does need to wait just a couple extra seconds for actually trying to get back to that command center. So this is good pressure from herO. But it is going to end with the Cyclone is out. But yeah, as far as the Terran, you know, you could be like, well, that went great. Macro's easy. TVP is fine. And you might be able to get away with it, but if herO is also like, you know what, I think you're not going to SCV pull every time. I think I need to try and be like maybe a little bit greedier and still have an eye on whether you're going to SCV pull me. I think that's still going to work out. Then I think Bunny's not going to have as fun of a time if he goes 3CC. It'll be a fine, nice and back and forth game, but I don't think it'll be as severe. But herO's not going to go for the 2-gate expand. He is at least adding on a 3rd gateway. Another question is a Warp Prism. He tends to like the Warp Prism. He's kind of along with Max Packs, which just always get the Warp Prism at 3 gateways. Bunny's medevac drop is on the way. Double Widow Mines. Just uses the factory to build into those tanks, which are pretty crucial. 2nd barracks also being finished up as the Tech Lab adds onto the starport. Very crucial. Banshee or Raven? Banshee or Raven? Banshee or Raven? Banshee feels popular on this map. It is a Raven. That Raven is kind of a nod, maybe, to it being a macro game then, considering that's what happened last game. First Widow Mine is taken out. Second Widow Mine is not good. Last second pull away right there, only losing the 1 probe that you should. And for Bunny, kind of a sucky situation. Loses the medevac as well as the Widow Mines. And he lost 2 SCVs. Depths came back in. So yeah, the Raven isn't guaranteed. The Raven is not a guaranteed no SCV pool, but it's something to consider. Charge on the way, lickety split. herO not going for a particularly fast 3rd Nexus, as he does invest into Stalker production with the Warp Prism, so he is going to be applying a good amount of pressure. 1 tank is available. It's not very well protected, though. Bunny doesn't know that it's 3 gateways. And this map's kind of odd. Usually a gateway would go on the front, but you're not quite sure about that, I think. Yeah, I don't... Yep. I mean, a bunker might not have stopped it either, but it would have made it so that the Marines don't have to leave. You know, they're still fighting around in the bunker. Second tank is available, so this won't be end game, but this is the steps that lead to a game-ending blink attack. Every tank that falls is another butt clench for the Terran fans. You're just like, no! Raven's gonna go for some auto turret harassment. A minor distraction that herO is not going to be bothered by. Goes in for the tank, goes in for the Cyclone as well. Saves some of the Stalkers that are being targeted down with the Warp Prism. I believe he did lose a handful. Yeah, 5 Stalkers do go down, but killing both tanks. The third tank also very vulnerable, but a lot of Stalkers are injured, so I think that will be safe for now. Bunker is coming down. Just kind of wish that it came down immediately. Still important to get it if it saves the day. If it saves the day, that tank barely survives! And that is very important. It means that herO will... No, he does get it, he does get it. Okay, but he lost so many Stalkers trying to get it in the first place. Warp Prism going to be targeted down. No additional warp in. SCVs pulled. Crucial to help out with the limited number of Marines that are available, but that is going to barely do the trick. And all that time, the Raven killed 8 probes. So not too shabby. Unfortunately, not microed away, but barely at the last second will survive. A lot of bareleys in this game going down. Bunny comes out ahead. He is up 3 workers with the double mules now, and he has traded his army. So both of them lost army. But that's okay, because both of them lost army. At this point in time, Bunny might be a little concerned, because he just doesn't know the information that we do. But if his medevac does make it across the map, and that is an if, it is not going to make it across the map, it would see a very low number of probes on the third base. Unfortunately, it doesn't. It does take some high ground, which is clever, but the Warp Prism is available, so sorry, that only worked out for a second. Scan did happen on Bunny's base, because he thought there was an observer, which there typically is, to be fair, and he thought maybe he had seen the medevac, but that was just good luck from herO, I think. Third CC is coming down, a little Sim City as well, which is important, not for the Stalkers, but for the Zealots are now being included. herO did add on some probes, is still adding on probes actually, but is going for a follow-up attack, one that is going to take advantage of what is a very limited number of bio units. The tanks might be crucial against the Stalkers, but they are less useful against the Zealots. Everything going on top of the tanks, the bunker also falling to the Zealots, are just not quite, not quite really is the name of this one game. Bunker lives, but there is so little here for Bunny that is very, very scary. He knows the second attack is likely. And what he needs now is not a tank, he just needs units. That's the thing. Any unit would do. But he needs units. Widow mines are being made as the reactor did finish, and that might be just in the nick of time. herO might have been down in workers, but now is ahead in a more appropriate stance. About 13 is actually very good. Because that third CC might not be on location for a little while. Warp Prism goes into the main, killing even more SCVs, and that's going to be a distraction too. Bunny needs to be careful about the front line. Seems like herO's not willing to commit. That is a very low number of Protoss units. But I think that's exactly what herO needed. That follow-up attack, I think that's exactly what he needed to make sure that this game stays, at the very least, even. SCV's mining out the gold, because Triangle is so nice to take. So third CC will be gotten. herO has some time to get, not more probes, but a 4th Nexus. +1 attack, Santher Lance, more Colossus as well. And it looks like Bunny's going to miss the Observer this time around. Missile turret's coming down somewhere. Anti-Warp Prism missile turret. And then a couple of Zealots are found out as Bunny finally moves across the map. Armor supply is very similar. Upgrades will be the same in about 15 seconds. Scans ahead. Doesn't really see very much, but still doesn't really like the optics of the push here, I guess. Warp Prism goes in. Widow Mine's burrow. Marauder needs to be saved. Yeah. Good save, though, on the Zealots. Ditto. Missile turret was helpful. Reinforcers to take out the Warp Prism. This is all time buying, though. This is all Bunny responding to the Warp Prism rather than trying to do any amount of damage. And more importantly, rather than Bunny being in position to defend against the incoming push, Bunny totally out of position. He knows it, too. I can almost guarantee that he knows it. He's like, this is going to take so much time. I got to get back. And he does. The Stalkers are the ones that are scouting now. Well, the Observer is still there, actually, so they just wanted a couple of pot shots. I do love the missile turret on the front. I do love it. It helped out last game, and it'll help out this game as well. Ideally, it sees the Observer, and it does. There you go. But it also can help against the Colossus. Either it attacks the Colossus because they get too close, or it distracts them. Because Colossus love killing buildings rather than units. Seems like a solid setup for Bunny, as far as his setups can go, I suppose. He is still down about 10 army supply, and he just took away a lot more. Okay, no, he's... I don't know if that was a planned drop, or now it just turns into repositioning, but now, yeah, you gotta go for the concave, lift the CC, pull the SCVs, hope that this works really well. I'm not sure that it will. There's just simply not enough firepower. Medivacs are also out of juice with all the running around that had happened earlier on. One Colossus will live, and Bunny will be forced to tap out. GG's. We go to the final match. In the top left of Maganatha, it is herO. In the bottom right, we have Bunny. Bunny has tried now 2 macro games. 1 won, 1 lost. Now is when you SCV pull? Maybe? Very difficult call. It's a huge map. And I don't know if I like that in any way for the Terran. I don't think Terrans like large maps. The larger, the worse. An SCV pool takes longer to get across the map, and an attack of any sort will take longer as well. If you do play macro, there are more, I would say, opportunities for the Protoss to attack into you, whether that's attacking or harassment, actually. Just with the more the map is large, the more bases eventually come down, the more opportunities the Protoss has to send, avenues of attack, and all that good stuff, so. And if you do manage to take a good fight, say you do the Hail Mary SCV pull around your third, and it just demolishes the Protoss army. That's more time for the Protoss to recover from that, so. Maybe I'm just a little surprised that he let it through in the vetoes the way that I'm thinking about it. Because it is one of the largest maps in the map pool, isn't it? I'm not making this up. I'm not going off of a gut feeling and being totally incorrect. Well. I am talking as if the onus is on Bunny, but I think it is, and not necessarily because of the state of TVP, which argue amongst yourselves, but rather that it is herO versus Bunny. And herO is considered one of the best Protoss in the world right now, where Bunny not quite reaching that mantle for Terran. They had an epic series years ago, in that DreamHack Atlanta. That was cool. And like, in the grand scheme of things, now that we're 4 years deeper, or 3 years, or whatever it is, 3 years deeper, I kind of wish Bunny had won it. Because it feels like herO was destined to win a couple more things, where Bunny has struggled a bit more. Oh well. But that was a long time ago that they were very evenly matched. Now I think herO is the favorite to win. Bunny is obviously determined to prove that wrong. Cyclone is on the way out. This is a similar opener. Similar, not same, as the last game. Because he had to go for a Reaper. Twilight Council on the way for herO. What else is new? Protoss players every once in a while throw in a Stargate, and that's the exact game where it just builder losses for them. And then they're like, never again. Stargate sucks. Just gonna go with Twilight Council. And a Robo opener? Forget about it. Loose Nations, he's a very typical setup. Not much to glean from this. Although, actually I say that. The reactor, that's a bit odd. Well, no, because it was a tech lab first. Actually, I guess it's not. It's just a different order, actually. So never mind. Just a different order of operations. So, yep, still similar to the last game. Usually you get that reactor first, and then you get a tech lab, you know, but anyway. Tank is on the way. Second barracks is on the way. Widow Mine drop is being created. herO is continuing to scout out for any shenanigans. There are none. 2 gateways with a 3rd gate being added on. Now this situation where I think you say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The 3-gate blink can be used to attack, defend, harass, middle of the road if you want to. It's pretty good. It's not as clean in a macro game as a 2-gate, but it's you can still get a pretty fast Nexus if you wanted to. Or in the case of herO, go for a Warp Prism, go for a lot of Stalkers, and kind of win the game. That last game was hard to call. It got so close at the very end of the... I assumed that would be no problem whatsoever, and that was very close to being a very big problem. herO took his sweet time pulling the probes. God. Okay, but only 3 went down. What was I talking about? Oh, herO likes to go with the Warp Prism and the Stalkers, but actually, this is the time he doesn't. This is the time he does not. He does go for basically the fastest Nexus after 3-gate. Yeah. No additional stock. Well, 7 Stalkers actually pretty good, but... They're not good for my Cortisol level. Well, not when the probes are just standing there. I mean, this is the most typical thing ever. And herO was a bit slow to the pull. I just, you know, could have been a disaster. Charge and Storm are on the way this game. So that's a bit of a departure for herO that Bunny would love to be able to scout. It also means with Bunny's current setup, there will not be an SEV pool before Storm. So don't SEV pool. I think if he SEV pools, he's just dead. But I'm getting the feeling he won't. I think this is the 3rd CC. herO not providing that same Stalker aggression should be noted by Bunny. And if it's not a lot of Stalker aggression, then there must be a 3rd. In fact, he already scouted it. The Raven went by on the left side. It's a little Raven Medivac combo. We get a couple of probes. 4 have gone down so far. And there is that 3rd CC. Interesting that Bunny didn't try any SEV pulls against herO. When it seems like every once in a while, herO just doesn't handle them well. Yeah, he didn't even try. I was really on board with that in the first game. In the second game, because it seemed to go well enough in the first game, okay. But the third game, well, I guess now then it would be too obvious to SCV pull. And again, maybe the map isn't great for it. So, okay, all right. But I don't know. This is not going to be the Colossus situation. Bunny's 3rd CC will go down location. It won't be Colossus bullying him. But it still will be a bully Protoss. Just because you have Charge and Storm instead of Colossus. Doesn't mean you can't just rush on in there. What it does mean is that the Protoss... Yikes! Medevac nearly going down. What it does mean is that the Protoss doesn't have as much staying power. The Colossus are sustained damage. They stay there, they do damage, they run away, they come back, they do damage. Storms are bursts. You use the Storms. If they miss, they suck. If they don't miss, they're great. But you can't just stay around forever with Charge Storm. The charge lots are also basically suicidal. You can almost look at them as banelings, right? Like they're just going to die. You don't retain the units. If you go for the throat, you go for the throat with this composition. So herO might not get that same type of effect where he's, you know, poking in and out, distracting with the Warp Prism. He either goes for a straight up attack, or what am I drop back in the main? Not going to find the probes. Or he uses this to hover. He's a little hover Protoss right now, and just make sure that Bunny is move out to him without his knowledge while he builds into what is a really more well-rounded Protoss army. Upgrades, economy, Colossus. Bunny is not yet aware. Yes, he is. Raven has been checking in on the technology. This time around, hero's done a much better job saving his probes. Only 5 going down despite the double-pronged attacks. Bunny does not have any form of map control. Almost completely in the dark. He doesn't know where the army is, but does feel the need to go out in the map and do something. Scans. I believe that's for an observer. I didn't think the army was going to be there. But it's just scary because the army really could be anywhere. This is a horror game right now for the Terran player. What am I job to the 4th? Ain't gonna work out. Gets a sight on where the army is, though. So in that way, it's a decent scout. What am I's gonna alert him to the zealots that were prepared, obviously. What else? What else would they do? To go in as soon as he moved out. herO's zealots might be known about, but they are still buying that time. They are still finding that damage. And herO even taking advantage of the pullback of the Terran to move his own army into position. 13 SCVs also going down. A surprising amount, actually. I did not expect 13. And that is a great opening there for herO. I don't know about the 4th command center here, actually. I don't know about this one. Great against charge lots, not great against anything else. Tank is taken down as well before the army can respond. And the 4th CC is certainly going to be canceled. Oh, feedback's being used, taking out that energy. Storm's not really hitting with anything as Bunny realizes, of course, they're going to be on the way. So he just is opting to let the front line take damage while the back line survives, which is a understandable trade-off. Now the 4th coming down to a more secure location, but herO is in some trouble. Where are the ghosts? He has known about the Templar Archives for a very long time, but he has not decided to go into ghosts, and this is not the first time we've seen a Terran do this. I can't really get on board with the decision, though, because EMP can feel very effective even if it doesn't quite take out all of the storms. Great concave, though. Okay, ghosts are finally on the way. They do feel late. You can get that a lot faster. Yes, it cuts into a little bit of your other production, but it is usually worth it. I suppose that's where the Terrans are changing things up nowadays. But thankfully the ghosts are on the way. Raven out of juice, unfortunately, but at least not dead. Viking number is only at 5. Not quite what you want, but it's only 2 Colossus. Storm on top of them. The rest of the army is going to come into the concave. Nicely done on the concave, Bunny. He really is trying to take the most advantage that he can, which maybe that's what he was looking at when he chose this map. I would say that when it comes to pushing through this, though, that's where it's a little dicier, but then you do have this kind of back attack to still set up something. herO not finding any game-ending damage, but he is still able to stick around. So that is exactly what he's doing while grabbing a 5th behind this. Also 2 more Robos coming down. 1 Colossus falls. Stalkers trying to take out the rest of the Vikings. Once again, a bit of a wash. Both of them very similar in supply. 2-1 for both parties as well. 2-2 about the finish for Bunny. EMPs hitting a lot of those High Templars. Scan ahead reveals no further High Templars, actually. This, I think, is a chaseable Protoss army, but yeah, the indecision is understandable. My indecision, anyway. Bunny made a very quick decision. He said, okay, I'm not going to go after that. But I wonder if he could have. It is always so scary, though. As soon as you think you know there's no High Templars left with Storms, there are High Templars with Storms. Lovely use of the map, too, to create another barrier. Bunny's going to try and take a 4th base while the attention is on the right side. And he might get away with that, but he definitely needs to put it into a planetary as soon as possible. Not for the main army, which could probably kill it before the Terran army responds. No, not anymore, not anymore. So it will help in a main engagement, but also for just a couple of zealots, which is also a fear. But this is the main engagement going down. Planetary not going to be formed to help out. Great Widowmine hit to start things off. Big bio ball, and the Colossus were not going to be targeting the right units. Good pullback there from herO. 3 disruptors are on the way. Storm goes down before the EMP, but still not a great storm. Base is looking to go down. I don't know if herO really wants to target fire it, though. Lifts to create more of a concave. Vikings top of those few Colossus that are left. Actually, 3 are back in the fold. Viking numbers might not be high enough. Medevac energy certainly not high enough, but at least 1 Colossus does fall. Bunny holding on here. Little upgrade advantage helping him, too. But he really needs more healing. That is the main problem right now, and that has been one of the main problems along the last year or so, maybe even longer at this point, why this has been such a difficult time for Terran to get into that 3rd base and into the 4th base. We do have a little bit of a pushback as herO loses all of his Colossus, but he has been trading them out, or prepared to trade them out, if you will, I guess, to Disruptors. Like, the Colossus, they almost always eventually fall, but Disruptors are going to be there to back them up. And if the Viking count still isn't ideal, as the Protoss player, you can go back into Colossus, of course. And that is exactly what herO is doing. herO's taking the map, by the way. Both corner bases being taken. Not even by the probes quite yet, but he could as well. And Bunny is just trying desperately to hang on, but it is not working out. Disruptor's trying to help out against the tank. Kill a couple of Zealots, actually, but oh well. herO's pretty rich. Doesn't seem to matter. herO also catching up on those upgrades. 2-2 is going to be done for him. About to be on 3-2, but Bunny also almost on 3-3. If Bunny could get maxed out, 3-3, and a good engagement, he could start cleaning up the map, but that is so far away from happening. Bunny really desperately needs the 4th base. Planetary might be a part of this next battle. Might be. Vikings looking for the Colossus. Don't find any. Now just dying when they really... That is a terrible time to die because Colossus are on the way. Medivacs are still very low on energy. Disrupt trying to get shots off. Not the best shots, but still creating a lot of crowd control effects. As the Colossus now come through, no Vikings are left over. Bunny supply in the gutter. And herO has just bullied him into submission. As Bunny will eventually be tapping out in this game to recover from this 70 supply deficit when the Protoss has total map control. Just not gonna happen. Now the third base is the target. Lots of SCVs will be going down. Although the CC will live. But Bunny has to know that he's pretty screwed, even though he hasn't seen the map in years. He will predict that there are many bases taken, and many gateways, and many robos. And he will have to tap out of this GSL. GG's. herO 2-1 advances to the decider match where he will face Zoun in a rematch. It's the decider match in GSL Group B. Who makes it to the semifinals and who loses out on an opportunity for an EWC qualification spot? In the bottom right, we have herO, and in the top left, we have Zoun. So in the other group, we already had a couple people who had their qualification spots. To be honest, I don't remember if herO has it or not. No, herO does have it. He actually got it first. Right, of course. Yeah, so this is less pressure from herO. So herO got it in the first season of GSL, and then, yeah, Maro was able to get it in the DreamHack Dallas. But for Zoun, this is, you know, one of the good chances, I guess, to actually... Oh, wait, did he also win the Korean qualifier? Both of these guys are already in it. Both of these guys are actually already in EWC. How about that? Yeah, so far it's Clem, Zoun, Kira, Raynor, Serral, Trigger, Firefly, maybe Firefly. All those match fixing allegations seem pretty real. herO, Classic, Maro, Shin, Solar, and Showtime. Yes, okay. So, alright, the pressure for that is not here. But the pressure for more money and more prestige is still. So both players, a little less weight on their shoulders, but now they get this rematch against each other. And I want to see who is best. Zoun was able to get the win over herO in the preliminary match. Some tricks definitely came into play, but the final game was not exactly straight up, I would say. But basically, I'm not saying that Zoun won because he's a tricky little bastard. I'm saying Zoun played a very fair PvP across the board and just won. And PvP is like that. PvP, you both have to be tricky. You both have to be a little dastardly. And in the first series, Zoun ended up the winner. Can rush into a Blink Stalker attack as herO prepared for his own Immortal Adept attack, I guess. It was an interesting set of games. Stargate coming up from herO, however, to shake things up even further, if this is a continuation of the last best of 3. He did go for a Stargate in that last game, but it was a really odd one. It was a off timing, totally unpredictable, but then still didn't do a lot of damage one. This one could be predicted. Zoun's probe obviously won't see it. Hallucination would, and Zoun did go for a Sentry Stalker opener. So this is something that herO should be aware of, and is fine with that, is comfortable still having an Oracle opener. And considering that the Oracle and Oracles, plural, can still be helpful, I mean, it's obviously okay. Was it nice when there was a chance that the opposing Protoss player couldn't scout this? Unless they got the Adepts in, or, well, waited further for Hallucination, I guess is the change. Yes, it was, but now the Hallucination comes out so quick. So the Oracle's going to come out, try its luck in the main base perhaps, but then really be looking more for maybe two-pronged attacks with the Adepts maybe from herO. Should be Adepts. You only got one, really? Oh yeah, one Stalker. Maybe 2 Oracles fly in when Zoun's least expecting it, and then they're used for stasis traps. Cannot be understated. That sometimes actually saves players in PvPs. But the Adept is constantly checking around because it really wants to see if there's any opening for the Oracle, I would say. More than anything else. Zoun wisely decides to keep his units and his probes in the main base. While he's still limited on units, he's not going to open up any opportunities for herO to find damage. So as soon as he can add on more units, that's when he sends the probes down. Oh, at this point in time, I mean, maybe I shouldn't say this legally, but it's pretty freaking clear Firefly match fixed. It's pretty clear. The question more so is whether or not whoever makes these decisions tells him to go away and then takes someone else from the spot, I guess. That's more so what's in question. And if it doesn't happen, it's going to be really awkward casting Firefly at EWC. Really awkward. 3 probes go down to the double Oracle, make that 5. But then herO missed some micros, I think. I think he wanted to go for another probe. That's what it looked like. But it wasn't worth it. Yeah. 1 Oracle lives, and that's still helpful for those stasis traps, but loses a lot of its power in threatening Zoun's bases. Zoun has gone for the Twilight Council as expected. herO did not. So you can go into Twilight Council pretty quickly after a Stargate and still catch up on Blink, I guess. If you go 2 Oracles, you are catching up. If you go 1 Oracle, we've actually seen Blink kind of match each other, but anyway, this is not Blink from herO. He has gone into Immortals, and I wonder if he's going to do the Immortal Adept attack that he wasn't really allowed to do in the first series. He did get a 3rd base on that technology. It just was a hidden 3rd base. So I'm still not ruling it out as his 3rd takes its spots. Zoun goes for the triangle 3rd. But it is also on the way. It is behind, though, and Zoun is behind overall on the probes. I guess just literally the probes that were lost, yep. That's all there is to it. Zoun is outing on Stargate, or gateways at this point, and is getting a Warp Prism, so he is certainly planning an attack. It's not a particularly spicy attack. It's not something that is cleverly undercutting, expectations and it's just that it's just like I'm going to come and attack you with Blink Stalkers. Like, what else? There's no delayed 3rd base, although it was slightly later than herO's. I still believe it went down before those gateways. What it is, though, is a cut of probes. So that is the clever part. Probes are no longer being produced. So Zoun fell behind straight up, but then he also stopped producing them. So Zoun really is dedicating quite a bit to this. No Forge either, so there are the cuts that are happening to give him this surplus of Stalkers that are hopefully going to win this game. herO did go for Twilight Council, not for the Adepts, but for Charge. So kind of old-fashioned Charge Immortal. Archon eventually. Archons are not here. Archons are almost always helpful. I don't want to say they're not helpful, but weirdly enough, in this case, an Archon might not be. 1 Archon would be targeted down by the Stalkers. I think you would want more Immortals, absolutely, and as many charge lots as you can get. Force fields coming down on both sides. herO's Immortals a little more vulnerable because of that, but not really being targeted either, so they are getting their own pot shots. More units being reinforced from herO as the shield battery also helps out. 1 Immortal finally goes down, but yeah, there was no target fire. Zoun kind of couldn't target fire because the force fields had made such a big concave. If he had tried to target fire at 1 Immortal, Stalkers would have been pulled in and would have just subjected themselves to more damage. But it does create an awkward situation in which 4 Immortals got to be involved in an entire fight. And 4 Immortals are what we have once again as the 5th came here to replace it. Stasis traps, not really coming into super big effect, but still something that Zoun needs to be concerned about. I think Zoun needs to be very concerned about this overall game, though, at this point. That was a bit of a wet noodle as far as the attack went. So you cut all of these things to try and get as many Stalkers as possible, and herO handled that almost easily, almost casually. He's got a Warp Prism. No, the Oracle goes back in for the damage, but herO should have a Warp Prism. Yes, he does. Just coming with the army. Zoun has not scouted this whatsoever. A little lapse of movement with the Stalkers as he was focusing on the defense of the Oracle means that he misses the entire army move-outs. Now he should be aware, but I think he was going to go for some type of base trade. Gets half his Stalkers caught in a stasis trap. Base trade is in effect, but herO has all of his units fighting. Zoun only has half, And Zoun also just has so much less. And that is herO winning game number 1. Certainly did not get enough money to retire. Absolutely not. Game number 2 as my cat takes up the screen. In the bottom left, it is herO. In the top right, it is Zoun. Apollo doesn't seem to realize that if I'm not sitting, there is no lap to sit on. If you ever have someone tell you that cats aren't needy, just point them to my stream. All my cats are needy. Even Wicket, who's like a tsundere cat, that's what I call her. She pretends that she doesn't need humans or social attention or anything like that, but she does. She just pretends to be very upset while it happens. Anyway, it's game number 2. So Zoun, he goes for a pretty straight up attack. There was that, you know, the little bit of what makes it powerful, cutting into the forge, cutting into the probe count, sure. But it was a pretty straight up attack. Even down to its actual execution. Just stalkers go. And herO had a very easy game up until that point. There was really nothing that Zoun had thrown his way that would have tripped him up. Yeah, nothing actually. What, you know, could be argued is that herO did invest into Stargate's units that weren't very useful. You obviously could still find a good engagement because the stalkers can pick off the immortals and their retention is often their best attribute. But first of all, I don't think the Stargate not doing a lot of damage actually drastically negatively impacted herO's game. And then second of all, the fight was not what I would say is ideal for a Blink Stalker fight. I'm not sure exactly why Zoun did what he did, but hindsight 2020, looking at that fight again, that's one he just wouldn't usually want to have as a Blink Stalker player. One where it's just mano a mano, big concaves. You know, stalkers weren't able to focus fire the important units. Many of the stalkers actually weren't involved, so the surplus of units wasn't really an impact there. And a lot of herO's units were able to impact them because they might have been less units, but they were more impactful. They were the immortals that were shooting away. And so that's, you know, I mean, I'm not saying Zoun doesn't know that, and he saw something in the engagement that made him go, this is the one to take. But it clearly wasn't, and that's just something that sometimes you don't know until it happens. But next time we see Zoun use Blink Stalkers, it's guaranteed going to be this focus fire on the big units, blink away, retain the units, come back with more units, pull away when necessary, come back, you know. That back and forth, that plays a little bit better. Zoun has gone for a Sentry Stalker opener once again. herO has actually gone for quite a few Stalkers. Wait, did I get that wrong? Yes, herO got for quite a few Stalkers. Zoun did go for a Sentry Stalker, but it was after... Is it after 2 Adepts? Or before 2 Adepts? Looks like before. It's kind of an odd way of doing things. herO looking for the force field. He's looking. Oh, Guardian Shield and force field. There we go. Yeah, okay, those force fields are pretty good. But the shield battery kind of negates them. And the Adept that went around was a really nice touch at the end of the day. Usually they're the first units created, not the second units created. But this timing worked out really nicely. herO very instantly recalling, however, has so far mitigated the damage with the Adepts. Yeah, they could have sacked themselves, I guess, but they really wouldn't have gotten a whole lot. So the point is the Adepts were able to force that recall. Not that Zoun was having that much trouble on the defense anyway, but that could have been even uglier, I think. I still like the idea. I still like the idea a lot. Sentries need to be a little careful. Yeah, the Adepts are going to skedaddle. Hallucination from herO is going to see nothing out of the ordinary. Twilight Council and a Forge. This was one of the faster forges of the PvPs we've seen, but very much for +1. Aside from that Dark Shrine versus Dark Shrine game, which is crazy. Yeah, this is going to be for that +1. So really setting up for, you know, usually a macro game. Third Nexus could come down. He might still go for an attack off of 3 base, but this time with +1. But this time with +1. herO has decided to go for, it looks like a similar definitely not same situation as the last time these two played on Tokamak. This is the one where herO got that hidden Stargate over here, and then Zoun had proxy gateways. But herO is going to go for Resident Enclaves. That's more my point here. He's going to go for Resident Enclaves. He is getting a couple of Immortals. This is going to be an attack that Zoun needs to prepare for. And Zoun's third Nexus is on the way. Hasn't scouted his opponent's intentions. Is obviously only seeing the Twilight Council, and the Robo doesn't quite tell you that. Seeing a much later third Nexus, though. That's getting increasingly suspicious. So Zoun saw this Nexus not planted. He is not scouted this one, I think, in a while, but that's his next destination. Yeah, exactly. Puts the second hallucination directly on that path, which herO anticipates. Just kidding, didn't have it on attack move. Okay, well. If that was anticipation for hallucinated Phoenix, that would have been awesome. I'm thinking it wasn't, though. I'm thinking he just moved out that direction. But the hallucination sees no third Nexus. Gets into the main to a certain extent, sees additional gateways. Doesn't see the extra two, but no third Nexus is kind of the reveal already. And the army moving out as well. Yeah, I think Zoun has an idea. Third Nexus is going to complete, but that might be a damage soaker. I don't know if Zoun is going to be willing to try and defend that. Doesn't look like it so far. And damage soaker is also a time buyer. You know, if herO does take the time to kill that, that would be great for Zoun. So Zoun just lets that finish. Shield batteries are completing, more of them, and the natural, more stalkers, as many as he can get. Adepts in the main, though, are a bit painful. No probe preemptively. Oh, that is an excellent warping. There is still a wall there. Nicely done. Force field's coming out for both players. Zoun's force field's just almost completely pushing back the Protoss army. Just further buying him some time. Does kill some of those frontline adepts. Not too shabby of a start here for Zoun. herO's actually the one that lost a couple of probes. I'm not sure to what. But Zoun is holding on really well. Oh, aggressive blink forward. Gets the warp prism. No further reinforcements. And this fell flat on its face. This could not have gone better for Zoun. Even the adepts still not finding as much probe damage as they would like. And that is it. Yeah, Zoun wins game 2 pretty handily. And now we go to the final match. Who makes it through? And it's the final game. Top left, we have Zoun. In the bottom right, it is herO. Zoun looked pretty at ease on that defense. Even if the Adepts had made it through into the main, I'm not even sure that would have been enough. But the wall off was pretty sick with that warp in. It was pretty cool. In PvP sometimes doesn't really feel worth it to try and figure out a pattern. Top tier PvP players are going to be able to be aggressive, be defensive, macro, micro. Stargate, Twilight Council, Robo. Hell, even sometimes 1-git expand, 2-git expand. Although we don't see much 1-git expands when it comes to Korea versus Korea. We see some in Korea versus Europe, but yeah, Korea versus Korea remains as aggressive as ever. It's always been the more aggressive region. And apparently that's actually true in almost every other game as well. But it's just really interesting. Someone needs to just like look into this on some like sociological level, you know. I wonder if it's the same in traditional sports too, actually. I wouldn't know enough. I've watched a little bit of Korean basketball because it was on when I was in Korea. And I don't know if I would say that they were, you know, more aggressive. But then that might just be the game. Can't really showcase that. But I believe it's the case in a lot of other esports. Can you be aggressive in baseball? I'm sure you could. I just don't know how. Anyway, someone needs to look into it. But for 15 years, Koreans have been more aggressive. A lot of them tend to be born in the flames of the ladder that is full of cheese and all-ins. Not so many are just literally playing macro games all the time. Even the ones who are really known for great macro games. I mean, Flash is known for a lot of his great macro games, but he was a little dinky cheeser when he began. Innovation, I think, might be the odd man out. He might not have been a big cheeser. I don't know. I wasn't watching him when he was bogus in Brood War. A little bit of the build's developing at this point. A Zealot. Quay? Why is he getting, how is he getting a Zealot? But then also almost the exact same gas. But then also almost he's actually down half a probe. Because I figured if he was later on gas, he would have had at least a probe more. Huh. Well, the Zealot's coming across the map. All right then. A unit you don't necessarily expect to see, but it is on the way. Zoun is, once again, playing very safe, the Sentry Stalker opener with Hallucination into a second Sentry and a Shield Battery, which is oftentimes crucial. Some of these early game pokes from the opposing player can snowball if you do not get that Shield Battery. herO sends out Hallucination and actually pulls back the army he was sending across the map. Doesn't like what he was seeing. Maybe was hoping that it was an Adept opener, and then he could just have walled off his natural, or his main, obviously. I'm not sure. But whatever he saw, it says not to go for it. It's a Robo opener too, which actually we have a flip. Zoun going for Robo, herO going for Twilight Council. herO looking a lot like Zoun in the last game, with that +1 being lickety split too. Third Nexus will be coming down for herO, and Zoun will kind of already know that to a certain extent. I mean, the Forge and Twilight Council coming down around the same time, I don't believe is a thing a lot with the Resident Glaives, for instance, or with Charge. You know, you would get the Immortals and then into Charge, as we've been seeing herO do. So, yeah, this combo is almost always Blink. And if it's a Blink like this with the Forge as well, if their Nexus will come down, taking away the chances of a 2-base big attack, which he's scouting for relentlessly. Their Nexus will also come down for Zoun. So we get a gentleman's game to end the series and end the GSL. +1 will be faster for herO, and his Stalkers will give him a lot of mobility, and herO is going to be proxying a gateway, so he's going to provide some pressure on top of that third. If he provides it right now, I'm not sure it would work. Yeah, I don't believe it would. Sometimes in like Stalker versus Stalker games, you just have to catch them slightly out of position. This time around, I'm not sure that's the case. But if it hits as that +1 finishes, then maybe herO is able to grab just a few more Stalkers and do a better job of culling the important units, namely the Immortal. Both players staying around 44. Looks like Zoun's actually cutting his probe production as herO continues. Just a couple more probes. He's going to stop now. Seems that way. He's got a total of 5 gateways, with the proxy one included. 2 Immortals are available. Force fields do come out. Hallucinations for herO as well, tanking some of those initial shots. But with the shield battery available too, I'm not so certain herO's going to find a lot in here. Force fields coming down for both players. herO's kind of fortunate though. He's able to escape off to the left side. Now his own force fields, okay, starting to cut off Zoun's units. Initially they were just kind of pushing the army away, but now they're cutting off units. Now herO's units are also cut off as the sentries go down, but the Immortals are a little vulnerable. Stalker's on the right side trying to go after him. They got a split situation right now. 3 Immortals and, well, now out of juice shield battery. Second shield battery is prepared. 1 Immortal will go down. Second Immortal completely fine, as herO then targeted more Stalkers. The Stalker aggression doesn't seem to be finding the damage it wants. herO is continuing to build probes behind this, though, and has gained a probe lead. Oh, jumps up another Immortal. Will grab that one. Third Immortal in his sights at this point. He will be able to take that out as well. He does lose a good chunk of his own Stalkers, however, so that was not exactly super clean. It was as clean as you could get with the number of Stalkers, but repercussions were there. And that was a nice micro moment. Another Stalker down for Zoun. Zoun is not going into Blink. He is going into Charge. So making more Stalkers and losing more Stalkers making him kind of awkward. But he can't really go into Zealots yet because Zealots need to be in a critical mass to really be effective. If they are not, then they just run after the Stalkers. The Stalkers run backwards. herO added in a couple of adepts to the right side as they kill 3 probes. That ain't bad. herO is now ahead by 10 workers, and that's really the damage here. Actual army fights have not been going even well, really, for herO, as he is down 15 army supply. But he has been probing behind the aggression, whereas Zoun was totally focused on the defense. If Zoun does not counterattack soon, he will fall too far behind in this game. And I'm not sure Zoun is ready to counterattack. Supply block current as well. Zoun may be buckling under the pressure to a certain extent. Realize you need to get something on the other side of the map. Can't just let herO do this all damn day long. Gets a couple of zealots across, but at the same time, herO produces zealots, and that will be a perfect defense, no problem. herO does let up on the stalker aggression, but I feel like the job was done as far as the economy. A 15 worker lead for herO as he takes the 4th base as well. There's still a time for Zoun to win based off of pure army, but it is slipping away. The Templar Archives only just now being created means it's even further off. If he's going to hit with +2 timing, that will be a lot of time for herO to build up his own very powerful army. herO also managed to get better upgrades. He actually slipped in a +1 armor before going into +2, but still matched Zoun's. So right now it seems so even. And herO actually, maybe not the best blink into the main base, honestly. Forced a recall of his opponents and then recalled himself. It will lose the Stalker some of the map control, but I guess that's okay. herO is moving on to just his own tanky army. Not so much the finesse army of a lot of Stalkers and a lot of movements and a lot of chasing down Zoun's army. He's also going into just kind of brute force mode. He's seen no 4th base with some of these run-bys that he's been doing in hallucinations, so I think he's well aware an attack is on the way. The +2 timing of old, it used to be every single PvP, every time. And now it is Zoun's last hope. But he's not in the position that you would want to be. You'd want to have an army that is superior, if not in numbers, then in composition. You know, maybe you have Archons, they don't. Maybe your Zealots outnumber theirs. Your Zealots get the wraparounds on the Stalkers that they have. But herO has been matching the composition for a while at this point, even including his own Archon. Immortal numbers have been increasing. He's going to be at 2 to 3. And he's going to have Fran's advantage. So shield battery, maybe faster reinforcements, probe pulls if really necessary. And he has the upgrade lead. herO actually might have been waiting for his own push, funnily enough. Okay, I thought he was preparing for defense, but now is a little awkward as he will not get that defender's advantage so much. One Archon also could have been sniped if Zoun had Blink, but he doesn't, of course, so the Zealots couldn't get on top of that. Zealots versus Zealots. Archons, though, involved more so for herO by the looks of things. Zoun needs that second Archon involved. Third Archon was also distracted by the Stalkers up at the top side. herO's supply perhaps telling a tale right now as the Stalkers of herO blink in, take out the 2 Archons. War Prism of herO providing very fast reinforcements, and this is done and dusted. Zoun will fall to herO in the rematch. The rematch curse is real, and herO will advance on in the GSL.